I'm gonna say this.
So I would like to call to order the meeting of the Manchester-Essex Regional School Committee on Tuesday, June 3rd at 6:12 p.m. I apologize about starting a few minutes late, but we did have a very nice event before this, just celebrating our retirees. So for anyone that is online, if there isn't on, I apologize starting about a few minutes late, but we will get going right away. So with that being said, as usual, we'll start with any public comment. If you have any comments and you're online, please put your full name and address in the chat, and we'll take your comments as they come in. And if there's anyone in person that has any public comments. Yeah.
No.
So we'll just wait a moment here to see if anyone online has. Is the chat working?
The chat's on.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're, well, I'm going to hold off just until Kate gets back, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So hold on for a moment while we just wait for everyone to.
We do like the consent agenda or something?
Can't do that. Well, I don't want to do that until after reorganization, right?
I think that's how we wrote it on the agenda. Yeah.
Yeah. Or is it fine to go through the consent agenda first?
Probably do.
I move to reorganize the agenda to take the consent agenda first. We
Second
make it
motion.
You need to vote on that. You can.
I think you can do
We
that.
can just do that. Yeah. All right. So then I will make a motion to.
We don't have to vote. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going straight to consent agenda.
I am.
My bad.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll move on to our consent agenda, and I'll make a motion for the acceptance of vouchers 1076. I believe that is it. And then I'm going to just split out the meetings from our last meeting since we had a pretty limited forum there. So do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
I just have one quick question, Pam. I'm not sure you can answer this, but one item on the expenses was football helmet certification, which was pretty pricey. Do you know how often that, you probably don't know this, but how often that happens? I don't think I've ever seen it in my 3 years, so I'm not sure it happens often, but.
I would think we'd have to do it annually, but that's just my guess. And I don't know, Michelle's just showing things differently.
Thank you.
But I can certainly get a more definitive.
Yeah, that'd be good just to know, yeah.
Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor? I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the school committee meeting on May 20th, 2025.
So
All those,
I don't know the question.
yeah, because,
It's
yeah,
now you're.
how do we do this? Because,
am I the only one who was here?
yeah.
Oh, we can't.
So we have to push it to the next meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
At
because
which
unless
we'll
John
have,
was here, you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't have a plan to vote.
Kate was here, right?
Yeah.
Kate was here.
Yeah,
Okay,
so you need 4.
Yeah. Yeah, we push it to the next meeting.
But there's only 3 of us in attendance, so we, okay,
For what?
No, you had 4 people at the meeting. You couldn't have meet
no, of our new committee.
right.
Was John at
for
the
that minute, right? But if John shows up,
But all I'm saying is if we need 4, we can't get 4.
right,
Oh,
right now, that's why we're saying,
You weren't at the meeting.
right,
Right.
move it to the next meeting.
That's not her fault.
Okay.
So at least we'll have 3. So
Can't vote on 3 minutes because
Okay.
there's only 3 of you.
having crossed this bridge before.
Yeah.
I will table the acceptance of our meetings minutes.
I mean, they're posted
Plenty of
as draft until you vote on them. So
Right.
we can make changes to them and then put them in the official bucket next time. So, Bahampton.
So then to kick things off, my chairperson's report really just is talking about reorganization. And the way that I think is the best way to do this meeting is to reorganize and vote on the chair and the vice chair. And then since we've been sort of in the process of defining the scope or like defining responsibilities of our subcommittees, to hold off on doing the subcommittee reorganization, either during our summer session and the business meeting during that session, or our meeting in August, depending on whichever's first. So with that being said, I think at this point I kind of hand the gavel over to you, Pam, for a real gavel.
Yes, you do. And I will open up and ask for any nominations. Well, this is let me start by saying this is the annual reorganization of the school committee that happens on the first meeting after the election of new members, and that is this meeting. So the first order of business is to establish who will serve as chair for next year. So are there any nominations for the role of chair for the 25-26 meeting?
I just have a question for information. What I said? Point of information. My question is, are you in the middle of a term? Is there a term length for chair, and where are we at in that cycle?
Yep, it's 1 year. And so we go year to year.
Oh, it's 1 year.
Yeah, and we do the reorganization right around this time every year. There's nothing that says it has to be 1 year. It can be more years. We've had both.
And in the past, have we tried to alternate like Essex, Manchester? Does that matter? Does that not matter?
In the past, we've done two years rotations, right?
Yeah,
We
all in,
vote on each
yeah,
year.
all in.
Right,
four
but it's
votes
been
each year, but it.
2-year
practice
cycles
has
of
been
alternating town.
That's what or alternating now.
In 2 years.
And have you been serving for 1 year, or is this your second?
Says I have served for 1 year.
You have served for 1 year. Thank you.
Open for nominations.
I will nominate Chris Reed to serve as chair for the 2025-26 year.
I'll second that. Discussion.
Since I made the nomination, I will just say, I've been a chair. I know what's involved in being chair. Chris and Kate together are a great team. And I know that there are easy things to do and hard things to do and things that are very forward public facing and things that are not very public facing. Sometimes it involves being the voice of the committee out for the public or in responses, privately or by email, but other times it involves answering questions and saying yes, or sometimes saying no, even to the committee members. And it doesn't have to be a 50-hour-a-week job. It doesn't have to be a 0-hour-a-week job. It's whatever that chairperson makes of it. And so I think that Chris has served served our committee, and that he and Kate, like I said, are a great team. So I'm in support of keeping this going. I do like the pattern of a couple years at a time. You get a year to sort of figure out what's going on, and then another year to do things and train up or share the information in case someone else takes over next. And I do like the idea of alternating. I would even be in support of codifying these things, but we don't have that in place currently. But I think that it's valuable practice right now for all of the things we're trying to accomplish to keep that consistency. So that's why I've made that nomination.
Hi, everybody. It's John here. Sorry I'm late.
Hi, John.
Hello.
Turn them on.
He just muted himself.
Other discussion.
That makes sense to me. I think having some continuity, I feel like I'm brand new, so I have the time to learn. But what I've seen of the school committee and Chris, what you're doing, it's a great job. And there are significant challenges ahead, particularly I think in the upcoming year. And so having the benefit of the experience you've gained over the past year would be helpful, right? Having someone who is trying to tackle those challenges and figure out the role of chair would be a lot. So if you're willing, because I think that's the other thing, are you willing?
Yeah, the team to do it,
I don't want to
Yes,
assume that.
yes.
I would support that.
I don't have anything to add to what Teresa already said because she gave a very nice summary. So I will just second what she said.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns? And is the body ready to vote? Alan? All in favor?
I think we have to do a roll call vote if we have John online.
So,
John?
what's the
Yes.
vote on exactly? Can you just fill me in, please?
We nominated Chris to continue as the chair for another year.
Okay, I thought so. Okay.
So point
Can
of,
we just clarify? I thought we had agreed that if we were remote, we were not participating.
I have no.
No, this is our convention here.
So I don't even know that we ever came to an agreement on this. We talked about coming up to an agreement on it. We talked about having that as part of our discussion, but I'm not sure we did. It's something that's,
Okay.
it doesn't matter to me either way, but I think we should decide and if. Yeah, I don't know that we ever voted on it. We never like got further than we may have talked about this.
Okay, so
I
we
think
left
that
it,
we-
yeah, all right, good.
Agreed in practice, but that it was ultimately up to the chair.
That's you, right? Okay.
awesome. I don't recall a formal vote. I recall we did discuss it, so if everyone is in agreement that we discussed but did not create a final determination, I would say there's nothing barring him from voting if we could, because remote participation is allowed.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we ready to vote?
Roll call.
Roll call. John?
Approve.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kate? Yes. Chris?
Yes.
Nadia?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
All in favor?
Success.
Unanimous. Chris, I pass it back to you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think. Okay, so, next order of business is just, voting for the vice chair, so I'll take any nominations.
I nominate Kate.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discussion?
All the same reasons. You guys make
Yeah.
a great pair. I think Kate's been a great listener from various perspectives here, so I'd like that nomination to continue the next year.
I think it's important to have both for Manchester and Essex representative and chair and vice chair. So, and also echoing what you said.
And I can just say as well, you know, our time on the committee, I think we both started at the same time. And then Kate and I got to work even closer together when we were negotiating the last teacher's contract. I've really come to respect Kate's opinion, whether we're in agreement or, you know, a lot of the times we're not in agreement. And I really appreciate that because a lot of times she comes with a different perspective that I do, and I do tend to reach out to Kate quite a bit to, again, make sure that we are, you know, taking into account all of stakeholders and just, you know, she's hearing anything different than I am. So I think it's a great nomination as well.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All right, then we'll vote by roll call. John, do you want to start?
Yes, approve.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Nadia?
Yes.
Right. Sorry, I'm.
With Lindsay. Yes.
Yeah, Jake, yeah. Thank you.
Because we don't have our name placards. That's what it is.
I've literally,
Well, the blue bag has gone missing. We brought it to Essex and now somebody neatly put it away, but we can't figure out where. So we're on it. Amy did get two placards for for our new folks, and we decided we wouldn't have to call them out all by themselves, so we'll have a whole new set.
All right, so with that done, we'll move on to our student report. How are things going these days?
Well, pretty good. Senior week has been going on, which is why Stella, I'm her successor. She's no longer here with us, so it's just me now. They're off having fun. I think they just arrived in Maine for their whitewater rafting trip, which is great. And we're coming up on finals soon, which is so fun for everyone. But yeah, overall, it's going pretty well. I think the only questions I've been hearing around recently have been tied to schedules and wondering when that kind of stuff is going to be coming out. And I've gotten input from a middle school student, specifically about the alignment of the two schedules, in especially the middle school going up to the, like, aligning to the high school schedule, and just wondering about like the timeline for when that stuff is all officially going to be like rolled out and announced to everyone and stuff. Because I've only unofficially heard it through.
Yep.
And then other than that, I haven't heard much of anything post-budget season other than like gratitude and a lot of relief, especially on teachers' end, but also a lot of students very relieved, which has been really wonderful. It's nice and calm at school right now, which is always great. And other than that, I'd love if you guys ever have any questions or if there's anything specific you guys would like me to report out on in the future, especially as I'm coming into this role and figuring out what to do with it. Please just let me know. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at.
Thank you.
I have a question. I don't see any station, any spreadsheet, I'm sorry.
You have a real question?
I don't. Zero real question.
All right. We already took care of our consent agenda.
Chris, since John is here, can we just do the minutes real quick and get that done? Because we're the only three that can vote on it, so might as well. Can we just-
Okay.
We can cross something off.
There you go. Yes. Okay.
Thanks, Maggie.
So I move to accept the minutes of the May 20th meeting.
Second. Oh, sorry.
All those in favor?
Approved.
John?
Yes, approved.
Approved? Kate?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Excellent.
Teresa,
I think everybody
abstain.
else has to
Yeah, well, I
Oh,
know.
abstain.
Abstain.
Okay. I believe that the elementary facilities subcommittee has a report for us.
Very brief, we haven't met since the last time. We have a meeting coming up third week of June. We decided to forego the May meeting in favor of an extra meeting in July. But the request for services for the designer is out and about, and Pam might be able to speak better to this.
Yeah, I actually have a couple quick slides that I thrown in the report, so I'm trying to get on and get those up.
Thank you, Teresa. Any questions? Or John, did you have anything to add?
No, that was a good summary.
All right. Anyone, any questions? Do our new members have any questions about sort of where we're at when it comes to any of this, or?
You mean the agenda or?
No. Like elementary facilities, you know.
I have a lot of questions,
So
but I mean,
I can give you the quick on the elementary, just to reiterate.
Quick like update, because it is.
Yeah, and I embedded it, so we're just kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but piggyback on, I mean, you captured it. So it's really just a little bit more detail and kind of had you both in mind, just so you could kind of visualize where we are in the whole process. So we are currently in forming the project team. So this, and you'll have a copy of it, there's a bunch of it online. This is kind of the flow chart from MSBA from the beginning to the end of the project. So we are here in forming the project team, which means you do three things. You hire your owner's project manager, which is the work the committee, the school building committee did over the winter into the, well, kind of into the spring. And now that we have the owner's project manager, OPM, you'll hear OPM over and over again for the life of this project. they're conducting the process of putting out the designer request for services and taking the committee through the process of identifying a designer, the architect, who's going to come in and actually execute the steps of the feasibility study. So this is very hard to read on this screen. I will try to blow it up a little bit, but this gives you the whole of the project kind of in a spreadsheet. So the beginning part is called eligibility, and that's kind of the forerunner to bringing the project team. So every one of the modules requires MSBA saying you're okay to advance to the next step. So we've completed everything in gray, that's eligibility, and now we're here in this module 2 forming the project team. We'll be done with that. We had estimated 8/12. Actually, our last meeting with MSBA is on 8/12, so we're kind of on target where we're on target from what we originally projected. So over the summer, we're going to have 3 or 4 different meetings. 2 with the building committee, where we're going to review the applicants for the architect's position, and then 2 with MSBA for them to go through the process with us. I think what's important what we learned in this process is that hiring the architect differs slightly from the project manager, which is completely within our control. MSBA will hear our request. So based on the request for proposals we get in, the committee will assess them and determine who our best fit is. Then we have to make our pitch to MSBA and tell them that this is the group we'd like to work with going forward. They ultimately control the assignment, but we're led to believe if we make a solid argument and their workload isn't too excessive, we should get the group that we asked for. They try to make sure that no company takes on more work than they can reasonably do. So everyone's looking out for us. So that final meeting will happen on the 12th. So we'll be able to go right into the year. We have building committee meetings are the 4th Tuesday of every month. So we'll be able to start the year planning for, meeting the designer and then planning for the public engagement that takes place as part of the feasibility study. So we will be moving into the feasibility study back end of August and right into the beginning of the year. And that's when we go through and start to answer all of the questions that people have. Is it a renovation? Is it a rebuild? Do you put it in the location it's in now? Do you seek another location? So they will vet potential sites that are brought forward to us from Essex. Then they need to go through the checklist of everything we included in the feasibility study. Should we look at moving all of the students to the Memorial School and creating one site and not doing anything on the Essex property? Should we look at splitting the groups into a lower and upper group and sending half of the students over? So they will look at technically kind of the facilities aspect of that, and then give us a decision about kind of the cost benefit of each of those.
So all those options are still on the table.
All of the options are on the table. That's what we were asked to include in the feasibility scope. So we will have an official, they're working for us, but they will go through as experts, not our back of the envelope or common sense analysis, and kind of tick through each of those items and be able to generate for us what their mission is always to provide us the most cost-effective solution that supports the education program that we want to deliver.
So they have access to demographics. Projected future.
Yeah. And they've already done in the gray, in shaded gray time period, they did an enrollment study. So that's already, it's posted online on our finance page. It should also be on the Essex Elementary Building Project page. I know they're still moving some things over. So we already know kind of what the long-term projection is based on the demographics. I think what we've learned over time, and this is just an observation, it's not, so take it as that, is that what that report doesn't capture is real estate transactions and movement of, people coming in or they have no way to project who's going to age out and sell their home and who's going to move in. So that's the only thing that's kind of changed the trajectory of those numbers, both pro and con. I think that's just something to keep in mind, but they do ask for, and we've included in those reports, all the potential developments that might be coming along. So that's baked into it. So that's where we are. Yep, absolutely.
So you mentioned one of the options for the feasibility study is moving all the students to Memorial School. So that is going to require a change in the regional agreement. And so how does a change in the regional agreement work into the feasibility study?
So I think the first thing that they would look at, and this is kind of my perspective of it, is what they'll do as the architects is assess whether or not the building has capacity for it to happen. And if the building has capacity for it to happen, or the building needs to be modified, they can give us an estimated cost of what it would take to modify it and what parts of that modification would be MSBA reimbursable versus not. So anything that there are, we won't learn it all tonight because it's a long process, but there are aspects of the project. The whole point in working with MSBA is because they will give you grant money towards your project, and we're going to get around 30 to 33%. Not every square inch of the building, based on our decisions, will be reimbursable. So what they've told us going in is there will be if you have to redesign Memorial to accommodate students, and that is your preferred design, aspects of it will be reimbursable, but some may not be. So what the architect can assess, at the beginning is, how much of it will be reimbursable, how much of it will be straight out of pocket. Does the roof have to come off? Was the right structures put in place, or was it just kind of set up to, like, there's all of that technical stuff that they can come in and assess for us for each of the options that we laid out.
But then can you respond to the question though, in terms of what point in the process do we have to have our policy
Oh,
documents in line for us to move forward?
if they should determine that it's, thank you, I lost it, that what they return makes it look like it's beneficial to us, then the building committee would need to push that recommendation forward. And before MSBA accepts it, we'll have to change the agreement. So it could elongate the timeline. So if,
We need to be re-accepted then.
no, we would need,
They'd accept that phase.
we can't bring them a design for approval, so we have to bring them the design for approval. For them to approve it, we have to have the authority to put it forward. So we'd have to change the regional agreement before the building committee has the authority to put that forward. So we'll have to, be a little bit of learning as we go. But if it's starting to shape up that, and this is just, we're just hypothesizing here. If it turns out like, well, this just absolutely makes sense, and the committee agrees to that and wants to bring that forward as a conclusion and ask for us to investigate the regional agreement, I think that's just, we'll have to kind of walk through the timeline of that process. MSBA, you see MSBA gives us kind of estimated dates, number of days in each phase. If we were to go to them and say, option splitting the kids, some lower in Essex and upper at Memorial is absolutely the way we need to go, but we need to change the agreement, right? That's another option that's on the table. If we are making forward progress, they are often amenable to extending our days. So we would just have to approach them and work with them at that time. So we have contacts in MSBA. We're constantly talking back and forth with them. So they would be having the sense that we were moving in a direction that might need to take us more time.
Thank you. Can we get a copy of this after we put it in? Or can I get a copy?
Yeah.
Former members have it.
Usually with the super's report, I put the slides together and then send them. Yeah, do it right after. Yeah, but there is an older version of this in older materials, and I'll have this to you by tomorrow morning.
I can add a little bit here. I mean, what this really represents is that, I think that we have general ideas of what we would like to see or the district would like to see. But with any good analysis of anything, we want to make sure that we do analyze all aspects and options. And we've done that with all three of our two buildings that we built. We've done the exact same thing, right? So want to make sure that we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed, and that's why at this point in the process, we're still exploring any option that could potentially work, right? So
I'll just clarify that a little bit, only because we can only explore what MSBA has approved us to explore. So if you go on our site, there's the feasibility scope document. And depending on on your perspective, MSBA is our best friend or it's always in our way. I find the process very helpful because it keeps us on track and it keeps us accountable to another set of guidelines. So we can't just go off and explore whatever we want. We have to explore what we said we wanted to explore at the time in which we submitted these documents. So even though one of the ideas or two of the ideas on the list now may be like, ooh, I don't know, was this really something you wanted to pursue? It was what the group put forward at the time, so we do have to explore it. So some might get crossed off quickly, some may get more in-depth study, but every step of the way in the MSBA process, there is a protocol and structure of how we do things that you have to follow to be eligible for the grant. So that kind of keeps us true.
And that goes for the
And it keeps it-
locations as well, because we have the 3 different configurations that we submitted in terms of the grades. But it also goes for locations, whether we build where we are or at a different location. And then also Memorial is a 3rd location, so that's sort of in both boxes there. And they all will get their due diligence and we'll eliminate whatever can be eliminated simply, whatever doesn't make sense for very easy reasons, and then look more in depth at whatever's left.
And if you, Lindsay and Nadia, if you want to get together, we can kind of walk through the whole MSP thing, and I can certainly send you the links. But this is many of us have been are on round 2, so we may just be saying things that make sense to us and not.
No, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate the overview. It's really.
And also the school building committee, SBC. So those meetings are open public meetings. John and I sit on that committee as part of our subcommittee responsibilities, but they are open meetings. You're welcome to come and attend if you want.
It may be worth noting that the school building website is up, right? It doesn't have much in it yet, but
They have it
it's-
installed.
it's public at least, so, okay, good.
What I'm still trying to figure out, because I stated on the budget issues, is to what extent our budget considerations for, which option we choose for our school building, and the district, depend on budget impacting the ability to retain
Yeah.
teachers.
So I think part of that
Is
is
2 separate buckets?
a little bit, but they were really heavily impacted the application to go into it. So that the budget concerns and constraints that we've been talking about are why we ended up with 2 additional configurations. The possibility of merging back at Memorial, merging everyone over to Memorial, or doing a split of grades between smaller school in Essex and then putting more over here, or some other configuration, was because of the budget constraints and concerns that we had from people who thought that it didn't make a lot of sense to build a full K-5 or pre-K-5 building in Essex when our enrollment is down and we're having these same budget conversations every year. So that's why we're going through this, is to see if those are really viable. And then once we find out what is viable, we'll be able to analyze the budget impact all around, not just the construction, but see if there really would be any savings, what savings there would be and there really wouldn't be. Yeah, so they are related.
But if you're also asking, our operating budget is, a separate vote. And we have any building would be a separate vote as well. Now, as taxpayers in both of our towns, of course, both of those different votes would impact your overall taxes. But they are, it's not like our operating budget includes, money from.
Our capital budget is separate.
Line items, if you will.
We have a separate capital budget, and that vote for the money for this would be down the line, because both towns have already approved money for this part of the process.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
And then is the high school fully paid, or is still, because I.
2034
So
is when it rolls off. And that had been the trajectory that everyone was trying to get to, but the costs at Essex of maintenance and the reports that we've had about accessibility issues and some other reasons, coupled with the fact that you don't know how quickly you're going to get in, made it wise for us to move forward with the application. We were accepted right away.
There's also
My-
timing for bond issuance for the stuff. There's a lot of, so we should take off.
Yeah, at some point I would be interested in that, because that's something I can imagine taxpayers are going to be very fixated on.
And I'll go to my
Sure.
broken record bullet point on the middle high school. 2034 is the 25-year half-life of the building. So what I've tried to communicate, so we can begin planning really long-term, is that while the debt's rolling off, it's likely this will need a significant facilities upgrade at that point. Think things like technology infrastructure, science labs, or just, believe it or not, it will, I think, have some of these conversations along the line when we look at configuration. This building, even though our enrollment's trimmed, the design of the building, it's starting to feel very tight. And we're running out of spaces to put things for modern programming. So it was built in the '09. It came online in the '09 era. So their process started probably 4 or 5 years before. So things started to change pretty quickly after that. So things like flexible space and flexible furniture, project room areas, small group space for special education. We have already in the past 7-10 years been reconfiguring existing spaces to accommodate those types of programs. So even though the numbers may be a little bit slimmer, we are definitely starting to bump into space constraints here at the high school. Even the conversations we've been having about the library space, it's feeling tight. So
Okay,
that's
so,
just a warning, not a warning, but a heads up that 2034 will bring about the conversation about another project, likely, in funding it.
Finance Committee did not meet, right? Number one.
We have not met.
Okay, the Policy Subcommittee
Did not mean
did not meet, perfect. The negotiations team did not meet. Superintendent's report. I know we have, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, well, so did you have a separate general update or?
I do have a general update and a very quick goals update, and the goals update kind of filters into the improvement plan update.
Right.
But you mentioned finance committee, and I made a note to myself, so before I forget, but as part of this report, I did reach out to Ann Alva, who is now the chair of the Board of Selectmen in Essex, on the idea of getting together sometime before the end of June to start thinking about planning for next year, and both are open to it. Both said they had great some flexibility in June, so it's a matter of who's going to represent this group and then dates. That's going to be schedule, I think, maybe the hardest piece of it all, because I don't have a date yet when we're. So maybe before we end tonight, we can do some brainstorming around what dates might work. So that's good news.
Thank you for doing.
Yeah, of course. So I'll just. So anyway, we'll start with just some. If you got my email or read my email last week, this is just, we've been having a whole lot of fun. I mean, there's just been a ton of stuff going on. The end of the year, it always happens, like things just keep coming in bunches. So just, we had students recognized for academic achievement by the Cape Ann Chamber. We had the Land and River project for the 5th graders. It was the joint project where they went to the Essex shipbuilding and were investigating kind of the local waters and environmental questions. So just a nice team bonding, rave reviews supported by Friends of Essex. So just really an altogether community effort to support the 5th grade students coming together and getting rave reviews. So thank you to everyone that made that happen. We've got many teams in the tournament. Some it's impacting their whitewater rafting trip because it is senior week. But great news coming out of athletics. The prom is a huge success. Everyone had a great time. Everyone had a great time?
Oh, it was awesome.
Good.
And uneventful.
And, I saw a lot of folks at the concert, some really great drumming in that show, but what didn't get as much attention, if you looked at the Facebook post today, we had a wonderful art exhibit of elementary art. So just a lot of exhibits of learning, a lot of celebrations of students happening at this time of year. So it's just a really fun, festive time. It's a time where we do try to squeeze in a lot of reflecting. We've been meeting and talking about the improvements plan. So Just kind of an uplifting time of year, and we are just in a race to the finish line at this point. So that brings up just a few notables. We are in senior week, baccalaureate. The kids are on the whitewater rafting trip now. I think Robbie was driving up the tennis team. Unfortunately, the lacrosse teams are here tomorrow. If anyone has questions about that, really, we're part of a K-band league, and this is a busy week for all schools, so moving games is pretty tough. So I know the kids are committed to their team and they had a choice. So it's a tough one to make, but I think they're excited to be in the playoffs. Thursday night will be baccalaureate. If you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful celebration. It's a student-led celebration of their time here. We have student performances, student hosts, and then there's a faculty speaker. And Friday afternoon is graduation, 4 o'clock on Highland Field. And I sent you some directions about where we'll gather and how to participate. And I'll follow up on that with another reminder by end of day tomorrow. And once we get through senior week, I do think you're going to start to see some scheduling. So because of the schedule alignment, they got a very late start in actually starting to generate student schedules. That on top of Ms. Groy being pretty inundated with senior activities, I think she'll be able to push through next week and start sending out some timelines of when you think schedules will be in the hands of students. I think the goal is before the end of the year, and communicating to the middle school what it's going to look like for them next year. Again, there aren't any drastic changes in the schedule. The key was aligning times. So the hope is that your actual day doesn't feel too different in terms of time and learning. The biggest change is probably the group lunch, but I think the way they have it figured out, we'll learn and grow and make changes through it if we need to, but I think they have the age levels set up appropriately to get us started. And then just tomorrow night, because every night has something between now and the 17th, there's the Rising 6th grade parent orientation night for upcoming rising middle school students. Two more quick points. The North Shore Education Consortium, it's our special education collaborative in the North Shore. We formally signed the regional transportation agreement. So we had gotten together. There's some think tank component to it and some attempt to do some sharing around special education costs. So each district invested $5,000 for a study of how we could do some grouping around special education transportation. So asking the consortium or the collaborative to serve as the hub. And the byproduct of that was they're going to map a plan for next year. And they originally were saying around 6% savings. I think Michelle budgeted 8%. And now they're saying the current estimated savings as of us signing off is about 10% or $95,000. So it's not guaranteed savings. It's a projection of what we think we can save for the year, but it's an effort a couple of years in the making to try to get some more efficiency around route consolidation. So that is up and running and we're formally in the program. And then just an update on hiring. We've had I've had chats with people along the way. Annually, we call it the tide. It's the coming and going. So there are always people retiring or resigning, mostly for good reasons. Like I think I said this last time, somebody's spouse may be moving across the country or they're going up to try something new or moving up to a different role. But as of the 20th, we had posted, as of the 20th, we had 14 open positions and have been posting and conducting interviews for those. But the warning is it changes because it is a tide. So someone who doesn't think they're going anywhere may have a life change in the summer and then we have another new open position. So the positions we're posting for are just ones that have been vacated by existing staff. In our TA postings will typically come up in that second week of June. So you'll see those coming. In that batch is the interim middle school principal search. It is slow, but we are pounding the pavement and working the network and trying to get some referrals to get an experienced person in for next year and sometime in July. Said early, feeling more mid right now, but July is kind of the goal. The contingency plan at this point is to just keep posting and keep moving. I've shared, I think we can run a safe and orderly building with the staff that we have. What we're striving for is to have a middle level expert on site to keep the vision. I mean, we talked a lot about what Joanne has been able to do at the middle school to keep us rowing in that same direction. I just have not had a lot of success finding people with middle school experience at this point. So we're gonna keep working it and keep trying it, and I'll keep providing you updates along the way. But I think I'm trying to be open-minded and fluid in terms of how, looking at possible ways to manage this if we can't find someone this month. With that said, I was going to talk about Essex. We already did. Are there any other any questions on things I've already talked about? And then we can kind of jump in to goals, because this will feed into the district improvement somewhat.
Just one comment. The timing was not ideal for the principal search. We all know, certainly. But thank you for continuing with that, because that is one thing that the community spoke loud and clear about.
Agreed.
I mean, they just came out loud and clear on that. And so we really wanted, I know you're doing everything you can, but I just want to publicly acknowledge that, you know, we heard the communities. You know, we discussed it during the budget conversations, but then they really showed up for that position and that model. So thank you for continuing that.
I agree. All I would offer is that I think I would be seeing this even if I'm afraid we'll see this even if we start early. That I don't think there is a deep pool. I don't think people are necessarily running to these jobs right now.
Yep.
And interesting in watching the principals, even with the pools that are coming in for teaching jobs. We have some really quality people that I've seen come through so far, but we're not having the numbers that we once did. So that just, it makes you have to work quickly.
Yep.
And I'm a big believer of it has to be the right person and the right fit with the right skills. So putting the wrong person in the seat just to make sure that there's somebody there can do more damage in 6 months than being methodical or creative about it. I'm still holding out hope. I think we will find a solution.
Yep.
Any of the candidates for dean from last year's interviews?
That's a good question.
Trying to remember, because I was part of the.
Yeah, no one, I don't remember any, haven't seen any names come back to us. But that's a good thought.
Yeah, just if the running people that, you know, we looked at that we thought, I mean, I remember there was one that I did. Position, but
Yeah, and I've gotten some inquiries from people and then some, no application materializes. So there's a lot of work. Everybody is kind of canvassing and looking for folks. So I'll keep you posted. And if anyone inquires to you, please just tell them to go to School Spring, go to the site or give me a call. Okay? Other questions?
Good question.
So I have it's more. Should I wait till that? It's on, it's just a thing.
Sure.
Like a thing. So the first one was for the land and sea you had mentioned. My fifth grader went on that and it seemed like a massive success. So I wanted to thank the people in the district who worked so hard to put that on. And I wanted to also thank, you mentioned Friends of Essex Elementary as a important partner in that. Also, Spalding Education Fund was an important partner in that. I just wanted to give, no, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure to give them a shout out for their hard work. It looks like also the Manchester-Essex Rotary Club, a couple of companies in the area helped out with that, Cell Signaling and New England Biolabs and the KVN Community Foundation. So I just wanted but there's a lot of work that goes into forming these partnerships with these community groups to make these types of experiences happen for our kids. And I just think it's really awesome and appreciate all of the hard work in every org and every, and within the schools that went into making that experience happen for the kids and to bring Manchester and Essex kids together in such a hyper local, really experiential, real world, relevant way was a beautiful thing. So if you can tell me if that comment is more appropriate for the end of the meeting or for right now, learning curve here, but
Thanks for filling in some of those.
oh yeah, no, of course. And
Bridge through it.
I just, and the people in the district too, like the principals who worked on it, the teachers who worked on it, all of it. The other thing was to thank you for the work on the regional transportation agreement and doing everything we can do to bring down costs in creative and collaborative ways. I think that is. Thanks.
Awesome. Other? Okay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, so you will get a document as part of the eval package that's much more detailed than this. So just think of this as some high level notes. So at this time of the year, Heather and I have been talking about it. It's kind of funny because we're trying to reflect in between doing a lot of other things. So it kind of comes in fits and starts, but the intent of the goals, the intent of the district improvement plan goals is to kind of set a course, and some things pan out, some things don't, some things need to get reevaluated. But when I set these goals, they're 2-year goals. So when I set these goals, we were already in the middle of the discussions about the budget. So one of the things I had identified as going to be kind of a piece I needed to keep in mind and keep focused on over the couple of years was kind of just keeping things moving forward when we were talking about efficiencies and cuts and how are we going to make ends meet. And I think you've seen a couple of snippets along the way of what happens when we get into those discussions and how they can destabilize. Seems too strong of a word, but it creates some uncertainty, and the uncertainty kind of can get you to stall out on forward progress because it's hard for people to invest. So one thing we were trying to do was to keep the trains moving, not only in the face of the budget changes, but we had the principal change, the director change, and then a curriculum, and then the unexpected director change in the finance office. So how do you keep things moving when there are so many new faces and so many uncertain aspects of our budget? So these were some of the things I was focusing on under the header of sustaining progress through the transition of budget constraints. So it was just getting, one of my top priorities was getting our new leaders onboarded and supported in their onboarding. That went well. I think we made good matches with their mentors. We even retained mentors into the second year for some. So people seem to be in good partnership and getting both local support as well as an external dedicated person for them so they can test ideas against ours. So sometimes the internal advice isn't always the best advice. So they have external people they can turn to as well. So I think that's gone quite well. Schedule alignment was one of the goals on the list as a means of finding efficiency, but also to kind of set the table for some potential opportunities down the line. So it did take us the full 2 years to realize that. The first iteration actually produced a lot of feedback that helped to narrow the scope of the second that actually was able to go through. So we were able to tie that up just in the nick of time. So a little bit why those schedules are, she's kind of rushing to get them done now, and Joe as well. But we did come up with a schedule that will work for next year that wasn't disruptive and responsive to the initial feedback in year one. And sometimes it feels like a lot of movement, but to get to grade 6 world language, but it is going to allow us to use staffing across the levels to put that program back in place as a prelude to building toward reinstating elementary world language and a redesigned program down the line. And I think once we settle in and go through a pilot year and take feedback and make tweaks, it may spark a conversation about more instructionally driven schedule change in the future. I don't know that that's going to be immediate, but I think it started people thinking about, well, why are we just trying to kind of push two things together that may not be well designed to be together? So I think it's going to open up a new lens for opportunities and definitely a broader discussion with more people being interested in that and joining the discussion in the early stages. So I think that set some nice things in motion while helping us with an immediate efficiency in terms of how to schedule staff between buildings.
Is there anything middle school lost as a result of this?
Me block. I don't know if I'm going to call it lost. I think there was I think it was, I think depending on how you're coming to this, in talking with Joanne over the year, the years in which they tried to institute it. I don't think it lived up to the expectations that they had for the program. So in working with Joanne, this was something she was willing to pull off the table to make it go. And I think there's an opening now to redesign that program and try to find a way to bring it back. But I don't think it was being used in a way she thought it was designed for. So I think depending on where you sit, it's a loss or it's a reset and an opportunity to reinvent and bring it forward.
But the other courses are all still, like MSA is preserved.
All courses
All of
are
that's preserved, and we're
preserved.
gaining
All
grade 6
instructional
world
time
language.
is preserved. It's
Great.
really MSA. And I think in speaking with Julie, who's really been a huge, Julie and Joe and Liz have really worked throughout the process on this schedule. Julie kind of had an aha moment one night and came up with something that she's like, if I do this, this and that, then it'll work. And it worked. I think she has a lens where once it's up and running, if the MSA loss feels too great, or if there's a new concept of
Me block. Okay. Yep.
strike that,
Careful.
I think she can find a way or see a way toward reshaping some little pieces of time. I think a lot of it is we have a lot of rigidity around how we look at time because it's such a personal experience during the day for the staff that sometimes it's hard to pull out and see the big picture. And it's challenging to ask people that because they can see immediately how they're going to have to do things differently. Once you're in it, like we went through this with the elementary, once you're in it, you start to identify some actual things we could do to make it better, as opposed to just the feeling that it's not going to work or it's not going to accomplish the things we want. And in a lot of ways, what they're bringing forward, they may be right, and we may need to make changes. So I think it's getting everybody on board to attempt the change and then be ready to do course corrections as we go. That being said, so if Me Block gets reimagined and they need to find some time in the week to do it, I think she probably could figure something out. So again, with the theme of kind of keeping things moving forward, while we were working on transitions and finances, just using the district goals kind of as a measure. So last year, we hit about 77% of the deliverables, and we'll talk a little bit about the 3-year assessment that we're doing tonight after. But this year, when we looked at the 3-year in total, of our 3-year objectives, we hit 82% of them, 85% of curriculum instruction. So the ones in both years tied to a couple of things at the secondary, but primarily finance and operations, which we just kept you'll see, we kept as an open carry forward. So that's things like stabilizing the budget, getting the correction, and things like that. So we'll do some more detailed discussion about that, Heather and I, when we do the district improvement plan. But, you know, given everything that we had going on, I think there's evidence that we kept our plans for instructional growth moving forward, which is, I was pleased to see. And we'll also lay out our timeline. You'll have the next iteration of the district improvement plan will be ready for the fall for preview, feedback, and then to finalize by October. The other piece we wanted to make sure, sometimes what happens when there's a lot of financial discussion happening and new people coming into the district, admin to admin council. So that's all the directors and the principals. Sometimes we call it admin council, sometimes we call it leadership, sometimes we call it cabinet. But the AC can get kind of sucked into doing a heavy amount of technical work and problem solving around whatever the issue of the day is. So budget cuts, faculty stress around the budget. So we made a concerted effort to say, we're going to have meetings to deal with that for sure. But we typically meet, our regular meeting schedule is every other Thursday. So the goal was to set out and make sure the majority of that time, or at least half of it to start, was focused on improving our teaching and learning lens, and working to take the pieces that we were building foundations around. So things like the social emotional learning and the cultural competency, and working together as a team to get them into our repertoire of evaluation. And evaluation isn't negative. It's the feedback and growth opportunity for teachers. So over the past 2 years, we've been working on doing team walkthroughs, trying to calibrate, do we see the same things? What things should we be looking for if we want to assess whether a classroom is inclusive, or culturally competent? And then moving this year into more of an instructional lens and partnering with the Research for Better Teaching in the Observing and Analyzing course, which we did through the course of the year. So we actually upped our focus time on teaching and learning this year because we built in 7 full day facilitated sessions on how to observe and analyze teaching. Everything from calibrating how we're writing claims and evidence reports. There are evaluation reports that are like a claims evidence and impact style. So do we see the same things? Do we write it in a similar way? Do the tools that are our tools current, or do they need development? So a couple of things came out of it. We established a set of look-fors around SEL and cultural competency, and we identified some problems. We have an observation checklist that we use for unannounced observations. So that's pretty dated at this point. So through our work, and it was nice because it was each session, depending on what we were focusing on, we would notice one piece or somebody would bring forward an idea for change. So we kind of collected all of that. Now we need to invite the association to a conversation about it. So we've done some work. We kind of aligned, and it was good timing with having new people brought in with different levels of experience around it. And we've got some recommendations and documents that we'd like to bring forward. Evaluation tools are the subject of negotiation. So my goal next year to carry forward is to establish a joint labor management group to kind of share what we found and work together to update the document. We've done this very successfully in the past. It will probably take us the year to come up with new forms and checklists and things like that. One thing we are going to be able to move forward on, and we're in conversation, is there's a new DESE rubric for for assessing classroom teachers. And because we have signed on to the DESE tools within the contract, this should just be a natural upgrade. So we think we'll be able to roll that out right away in the fall, and we will do a little bit of kind of closeout work on this over the summer. So I really enjoyed this time because it was sometimes being forced to stop and just focus on teaching and learning. I mean, what we find is it's very hard to get everybody to be uninterrupted for 6 hours a day. So we had to be flexible and with people's schedules, and there were times when people had to cover for each other, but it was at least scheduled, and we felt responsible to it and responsible in trying to make it work in a good way to kind of do some team building focused around instruction. So very excited about that. And we thought, so I think it was a successful marker of staying focused on the big picture. Just a note here, I noticed in kind of trying to report out on this that my goal 1 and 3 were kind of tied together, a little bit like you'll see in our district improvement plan. They kind of work with each other. So I did a combination report instead of being repetitive. And then my other big one, which was actually ended up being a lot of fun.
And the teaching and learning was across disciplines and both middle and
Yep.
high.
It was all principals and all directors, so it was K-12, and we moved from site to site to do our observations and to do our walkthroughs. So it was fun. It was a fun process. Maybe some days it didn't sound like we were having fun, but it was. And then this was actually ended up being a really kind of a nice, I won't say distraction, but it was a fun group to kind of sink my teeth into a problem and try to come up with a set of recommendations and work and be a little bit more of the facilitator and not always having to try to present the solution. So the goal was to start it in 23, 24, and that did not happen. It did start this late this fall. We had a group come together. A lot of folks from the libraries signed on. So we had some administrators, some community members, and some teachers. We met, say, 5 times or 6 times over the course of the year. Nonetheless, we did work when we weren't in session 2, researching kind of the best practices and model programs that are out there for schools, and just teasing through the difference between a town library and a school library and what those programs should be. They put together a survey to the community. We had a really good response. I want to say somewhere in the 300 to 400 respondents range. And then they used the research in the survey results. Our focus groups were, okay, we had some teachers who were able to inform. We came up to Learning Commons during a U block and chatted with some kids about kind of what they thought about the space and what we could do with it. And all of those things got rolled into a session where we went through and kind of pre-generated some recommendations and then ranked them. And I'll have a document, I'll be able to link to this. We're working on trying to finalize it. Now, just a set of recommendations of what we can do kind of in the short term. So what are some things we could do next year that don't have tremendous budget implications? And I have to say, the library TA is already doing a lot of it and was actually very excited by some of the recommendations that came forth. And then I would say I'm already prepared to make the proposal in the budget for next year to reinstate the library. And that was the number one in recommendations, regardless of the wording, was leveraging the libraries in the two towns and creating partnerships with them to try to resource and support the library as it is now. So can we be more active in accessing the database at the library from here? So while we may not be able to, create a collection overnight, kids can get any book they want from the public library. So how do we set up something like a routine drop where the kids are checking out books electronically and they're coming over here? So things like that we felt were very immediate, and everyone thought that came up to be everyone's kind of number one. But clearly, right behind it is getting somebody in here who is a librarian dedicated to growing the program, maintaining the space, and putting forth, implementing the recommendations that we came up with. So the TA position is it's a halfway placeholder. So if I can find another $50,000 to match that, we should be able to, and the budget goes in a positive direction for next year. The goal would be to try to bring somebody out for the fall of 27.
Is there maybe budget less impactful of 50K of way to take the person who's serving as a TA right now and increase their capacity to serve in such a position? Or are you saying you want to hire like an actual certified librarian person?
I think it was pretty clear in the conversation that wonderful what's happening now, but someone who has that current knowledge base to be able to help guide us in what the program should be, make recommendations about the space, about the collection, about the technology integration, and also seeing that position not being a traditional librarian, because the current concept is really associated with media literacy. So how does this person help us navigate the world of AI and all of the digital literacy ethical questions that are coming our way? So I think what people were really clear about too is defining what the role is in that job description, so it's clear what the expectations are when the person's here. So
It's not like elementary where you have classes, you bring your kids to library. It's not a special.
No, it's more of like a resource support where you might partner with a teacher. And I think the other thing that you'll see in the recommendations too is that in the immediate for next year, creating more accessibility for middle school students, either by doing a couple of things, working with teachers to schedule time to come in and honor that middle school students aren't high school students, and the independent drop-in is not necessarily the model that's best suited for them. And then carving out some more defined spaces and introducing a reading nook for middle school, so there's a clear space for them so that they feel invited in. And it's funny, I'll just share one more thing without going too long. I think one of the aha moments that we got to with the group was that who are we making these recommendations for? The adults in our experience in the libraries, or what the kids want now? And what the kids were asking for was very different from what we started asking for in the beginning as adults. So I thought that was a huge aha moment for a lot of us. Because really in talking with the kids, the middle school students aren't reporting necessarily that they are uncomfortable. High school students might be reporting that sometimes the way it was constructed in the past, it was a little noisy. So what are some things we can do to accommodate both grade levels so that they can cohabitate and both have access to it? So everything won't happen overnight. It's going to be a work in progress, but we do have some it's good to have the recommendations. because it helps us to kind of set up what our implementation game plan can be. So those were kind of, that's the top line summary. There's a little bit more detail in the document that you'll get, and it'll have some links in it. But happy to answer any questions. And I think you'll see this as an introduction to therefore some of the things will all connect.
Think we're good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Are we doing any discussion?
oh, just if you have any questions. Well,
So I just want to say, first of all, thank you for sharing some of the insights. I think I hope we do more of this going forward. I know we've talked about, let's talk more education and less budget. But what I particularly appreciate about what you've done here is give us some insight into, those ahas, the impacts of what's happening. I feel a lot of times a little frustrated that we hear things are happening, but that, it's just process. So I appreciate what you've done here and say, here's why we came to it, here's where we landed, and understanding that a little bit better. So thank you for that.
very good point. Thank you.
I can talk all night.
I know. Sometimes.
Yeah, no, sorry. So I'll stop unless there are other questions.
No? Any other questions? Okay. So moving on to
More talk.
more time. Lots of great information. Welcome as always, Heather. Thank you.
We're gonna probably blank up there.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind standing up. If you're okay standing up.
I prefer it.
Background, what this is for.
Oh, absolutely. Let me just get this.
Built in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing it too.
Oh,
That's okay.
you or me.
Oh,
Double dipping.
Do you want to take it? Let me know.
We can do it from here and I can use the mouse if you want.
Yes.
We talked about.
We talked about.
what's your deal?
Well, if you're already up, you've grabbed it, so go ahead.
All right, I stole it.
Jake, it's fun for us too to get a week or like, since the budget says we've actually been able to talk about other things. So that's actually a very fun thing. You can drive.
All right.
It's your computer.
Oh, no, it's going too far. Sorry, it's not too far.
Let me fix this for you, so.
Yeah, you got full screen of the presentation.
There.
Like you powerful. Or presentation.
How's this?
Or-
All right.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think of how to, because I just talked a lot. So I a whole lot more. So we do. I think I want to go to the third slide first.
We're gonna drive.
That one.
Go right ahead.
All right, so we do a district improvement plan in 3-year increments. District improvement plan actually ties and is kind of an increment in movement toward our 10-year goals, right? So we have the strategic, I'm actually going to go ahead.
Just click on the left hand.
Nope. You're gonna have to drive because this is your mouse in your setup. Because I want to help Nadia and Lindsay understand kind of how it all goes together first.
Do I see that? No.
No, I want to go way back, like to the stack, this.
Here.
So if you knew, we were going to jump in with a different place, but this actually makes more sense. So we have a 10-year strategic plan. We're 3 years in. And we're going to do 3 district improvement plans within the 10-year plan. So incremental roadmaps of how to get to the big picture. Then within this structure, there's 2-year school improvement plans that sit and tie to, and you work on those in school council, to the district improvement plan. And then the educator plans are supposed to be tying in goals related to helping us meet our master goals here that align with the increments. So like when I was just reporting on, we've been focusing on the checklists around SEL and cultural competency and some instructional pieces. Those will start to become conversations with educators about what we're going to be looking for as we're going into classes. Now we can back up.
Sorry, where are we in the
Right.
year application?
We are 3 years in, so we're reporting to you on the end of the first 3-year district improvement plan.
Thank you.
And then in general, like presentations like this, it's a great, like, it's great to take notes if you, this is specific to heart, you're like, oh, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, or. So it's great to just take a quick note, and at the end, we can kind of go back and we can highlight
So same
anything.
question for that.
Yeah. Right, and it's just nice to do that so we can go through all the information, because sometimes information's further down and you're like, oh wait, I want to know more about that. And all of a sudden, 3 slides later, it's like, oh, that's there, right? So just like to go through it, take a quick couple of notes if you'd like to just hear a little bit more, or if something's
Great.
not, or if you want to just ask a few questions about a specific topic, and anything like that. So
Thank you.
those for you too, Teresa.
Oh, I will.
So everything ties to our vision, and their vision drives the construction of all of the planning underneath it. We can go next slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. We are better.
Now
at
I'm
technology. So this slide is showing you the component or the information that drives the development of the district improvement plan. And I think we always want to say and make clear that the district improvement plan isn't any one person's idea or the things we're doing in school. I mean, obviously there are some kid-oriented stuff that's very specific to the school or an interest with, the kids have, or maybe the PTO has. But when we're doing our district improvement planning, we're taking it from 3 main sources of information. Number one, the strategic plan is the big driver, the big goals. But then we have federal and state mandates, and they come at us all the time. So everything from a new rubric that we need to implement around instruction to guidelines on attendance to the frameworks that we have to follow. So we're not making things up as we go. We're deciding what should or shouldn't be in the curriculum. Most of it tracks back to our curriculum frameworks and guidance from DESE. How we implement it needs to track to the values, the core values, and the initiatives we lay out in the strategic plan. And then we're always collecting student data and local needs assessments, also known as the third-party assessments, right? So it's these 3 sources that will inform the development of our next improvement plan. Student data we're collecting daily. Local needs assessments are things like the special ed program review, the SEL needs assessment that we'll reference going through here. We will use the DESE review as living in 2 different buckets, which should be coming to us sometime in July. I checked with him last week. So as an exit to this slide, the district improvement plan is data-driven. It's not interest-driven.
Good to keep going.
Good to keep going. We already did that one. And then just as a jumping off point, interconnectedness, I think, is going to be a theme of the whole presentation. We have 3 strategic initiatives, all are interconnected and all work to support one another by creating the conditions under which kids can learn and be successful. So our first big goal was establish and foster authentic learning pre-K, integrate social emotional learning, and celebrate and nurture the inclusive culture. So if you look at the large document that I sent you that shows the actual 3-year district improvement plan with all of the deliverables and who does what, even in budget, I tend to be the person who does the big container pieces in the presentation. And then Heather's going to speak to a lot of the curriculum pieces that live in her office, but we work together, so there may be bouncing off of ideas. So we're going to take the first 3 together as a curriculum package. So Heather, it is all yours.
All right. All right, now I use this mouse every day and I'm going back and forth. So as we're getting into them, some of the pieces that you may have noticed in the report card data that Pam had shared with you, that there's some pieces that are just complete, that are there deliverables that we've been able to do. There's some deliverables that have actually shifted the way we do things as a system. So it might be, it's not necessarily that the work is done, but now that we are here, now we're ready for another step, right? It's taken us to a new level in our practice and in our programming. And some are objectives that we may have adjusted, reconsidered, or made some pivots based on. input that we get, right? You make a plan, but that in 2022, we knew what we knew then. We know what we know now. So some of those pieces may have shifted based on different needs, inputs, and approaches. So as we go through, you're going to see examples of all of these different deliverables that are aligned with the work to moving towards those objectives.
So 3 terms, and we had to work on this too. The strategic initiative is the 10-year big picture thing we're striving for, and there are 4 of them. The objectives are the 3-year deliverables in that district improvement plan. The 3-year objectives. The deliverables are all of the things that we said we were going to do to achieve our objective. So in the interim reports, we reported on deliverables. Tonight, we're reporting on progress toward meeting our 3-year objectives.
And that's different. So the last few years when we've done the district improvement plan, you get in this year, this is what we did this year. So we scaled back and are doing the whole big picture look on the 3.
And do you do this only once a year, or is this like a periodic thing?
We do an end of year report each year on the 3. So it will start the fall with the introduction of the new plan. We'll end the year with an update on what we were able to achieve in that year. And you're going to see some things are going to carry forward. So naturally, there are things that we'll be working on right away in the beginning of the year, even though we haven't codified it in the plan. So then there'll be 2 end of year deliverable reports. And then in the 3rd year, which will be 2029, 6, 7, 28. We'll have another one of these type of reports. Okay.
So the strategic initiative number 1, authentic learning. I think what's really interesting, I was saying to Pam, I think it's really interesting that this is number 1, because I think this is the piece where I see that we have had some great steps towards it, but I see that this is the one that we have the most opportunity to continue to grow. So this is that place where really, I would say of our initiatives, the place where I see the most work still ahead of us rather than already done. However, I think the benefit of this one is as Pam mentioned before, the other strategic initiative 2, SEL, and 3, cultural competency, have set those conditions to make sure that we're ready to be applying this. So one of the pieces with this idea of authentic learning, and that initiative is focused on establishing and fostering an authentic pre-K through 12 learning environment. So we have 6 objectives that were in this 3-year district improvement plan. And in that report card, you would get a chance to look more specifically at quantitatively of those measures of which pieces we would say we met the objectives, what might we be continuing forward, and what might have been reconsidered. But when we were trying to think of ways to share, this is 3 years worth of work. And so we got a little overwhelmed. As Pam mentioned, we spent quite a few hours quite a few iterations of this, just trying to figure out how do we communicate. You can have the quantitative measures, but also trying to find what does it look like and sound like, and what does it feel like when we're saying that we've met some of these objectives moving forward. So while you can see the quantitative details in your packet, we want to just highlight a few based on some of our objectives of results of meeting them. Something like we met that deliverable of creating a common shared authentic learning definition that supports learning pre-K through 12 with our staff. That we are seeing some of those applied learning experiences like that integrated opportunity with the STEAM Showcase. I mean, walking in tonight and having that interdisciplinary course where students are applying some of those skills in a real life way, like on the day-to-day, seeing some of those pieces that we're moving that work forward, where students are having that authentic learning experience in their classrooms. Oh, sorry.
That's better.
Another one of the pieces that, while we're naming as a result of meeting our objectives, we're seeing increased collaboration with community partners. That's certainly not done. So that's, while we've made significant progress in that objective, that is ongoing. We heard an example just a minute ago of the 5th grade field trip with the shipbuilding and the number of community partners involved there. We had an email today about the relationship with the senior center and some of the work that's happening in our district. The community partners, we had 22 community partners come in during our professional development day in March to meet with our staff to build relationships and think about how can they partner in work. So while we started to both identify who our community partners are some of it's reestablishing relationships or maintaining, but also expanding those relationships and opportunities. That is definitely something that will be continuing. And then another example of one of the steps we've taken, the final bullet mentions the comprehensive examination of the arts programming. If you look at our district improvement plan from 3 years ago, there was naming of that idea of an arts director. Different limitations made us have to reconsider it, but this approach, what we did is we made a shift and utilized an opportunity in partnership with DESE to form an arts council to do a comprehensive review of our arts programming, outline what those next steps are and help to lay that foundation and those next steps towards moving forward. So while it was a reconsidered, we still were able to make some forward movement and progress on applying some of that work.
And maybe just a comment here on, so the deliverables were designed to be kind of evidence of action. But what it's hard to convey in here is something, I think of something like the middle school schedule. It's very simple to say we're going to implement a middle school schedule. What we can't capture here is the amount of work that goes into the relationship building and the moving people forward to get to it, to live in it, learn in it, and then thrive in it. So I don't know how to capture that metric, but most of these things, why they're 2 and 3 year pursuits, aren't because we don't have the time. It's because we have the idea, we can see the vision, but we have the work of the principals and the directors is to move the people to see it too, or at least get on board with it enough so we can test it out. So sometimes it feels like it's pretty easy to list all of these things in the end, but what we're not really capturing is the skill and time it takes to go into the relationship building and the capacity building with the staff, or even for the leaders who have to prepare to help the staff move. Yeah, we're good. Sorry.
No.
I never rely on the internet.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. Aaron. That's not even thick.
It might be just glitching. Where is it?
I don't understand what's even pop, like there's something else pop up. There's like, oh, there we go. All right, sorry about that. Something.
We are good at technology.
So one of the pieces that we want to identify here is that, well, there's a lot to celebrate, honestly. There's a lot of growth and a lot of outward examples of meeting some of those objectives and where we've taken, but there's also some objectives that we may have made progress on, but we're not quite there yet. So while they were part of that 3-year district improvement plan, there are some that we're going to be carrying forward into this next development of the district improvement plan for this next round, just to make sure that we really bring some of those next steps across the finish line or lean into some of the redesign or iterations of some of those objectives that were listed.
So these will form some of the basis of the new plan. And I would say, as we progress through, and what we reported last year is, I'm using those as my marker. Our SEL work and cultural competency work will never be closed, but it was the foundation so we can start to zero in a little bit more on number 4. And I think you'll start to see this developed more as we're going forward, everything from, our investment in the coaches, in the focus of our observation training this year is going to be building on the foundation of an environment that's conducive for students to learn and safe for students to learn, to now focusing in on how we are approaching the teaching and learning. And what is the work that we need to do there, whether it's authentic learning design or whether it's leaning into some more of the traditional pieces for remediation and growth. So I think you'll see this as a feature of the next iteration of the plan.
And I think the piece too, as we're here at this moment in time, is looking at, there's a lot of opportunities to take those external components into that district improvement plan. So one of the new pieces of input that we can use is the work that DESE's done to establish an educational vision for the state of Massachusetts. And one of their big cornerstones is this idea of deeper learning.
Yep.
What does that mean and look like? And how does that complement and inform the work that we're doing, so that it's not just simply a piece that we say we did, but really rather the new way that we do things, and how are we integrating those foundational steps into our day-to-day practice, programs, curriculum.
So coming to use some new phrases that we're going to use over again.
You'll get sick of us with that.
Deeper learning.
This piece, the strategic initiative number 2 around integrating social emotional learning into all aspects of the school day. As Pam mentioned, this was a piece that there was a lot of heavy pre-work that was done in this goal and, this initiative.
Nope, objective.
Well, in the social emotional initiative
Oh,
and
okay.
in meeting the objectives. So it's exciting to look at where this effort has come, especially knowing that that was a pretty big component of that strategic plan for 10 years and thinking at the end of 3, where the district currently is on some of these pieces.
Our work to do here is upper secondary, so high school is where I referenced it in my goals that we need to finish the pull through. It's there, the tools are there, it needs to be better articulated. But I think one of our big achievements is just the way the middle school was able to embrace it and help, and Joanne was able to use this to help drive the middle school model concept. And when I'm talking about the middle school model, it's not necessarily just the teaming piece, it's really the mindset about the developmental level and what their needs are, and teachers being able to see themselves beyond deliverers of content and really responsible for treating the whole child. So I think we've made some tremendous gains there. They've embraced it. They've done a nice job with it. There's always room for growth. Nothing's perfect. But I think this is one where we'll be more in a tending to it and maintaining it as opposed to needing to, except for at the high school, really start any huge new initiatives around it. And I think we've got some great feedback and some reporting on that we've had some successes there.
And this is information that we've shared. Again, most of the information that we're sharing isn't new because again, we're reporting over the course of 3 years, but using these different data sources to do that check. Are we making that progress? And what we're seeing in an ongoing way from a range of sources, including student reports. Some of the pieces that we see with this work is that those initial development of those initial steps, like Pam just mentioned, now the shift is towards implementation and that consistency and coherence. So the development of the SEL leadership team, that's something that we've made some great growth towards. But right now we have it up K through 8. So as Pam mentioned, how do we formalize that and expand that up into high school? So while we've achieved aspects of it, we have just that last bit to go to close that, to have that be a completely articulated piece. Then this idea of the SEL leadership team. So we, that group did do a needs assessment and had started that work of that SEL scope and sequence. So we have it, but then the question is what's next? Where does it live? Who owns? So some of these initial steps now moving it towards meeting that objective, and then how do we continue to carry it on as we go? The other piece, some of these pieces are pieces that maybe have been done even a few years ago with, for example, the parent education series is something that I know has been happening for a few different years. This year specifically, we were looking at that idea of digital literacy and wellness, and how are we helping families think about that student support and wellness topics. But yeah, there are some of these pieces that we can say we've done, and then some that we're saying we've done, and what does that look like for us as we iterate into the future?
I think the parent education series is one that I'm interested in new ideas. And I think that what we've offered is great, but getting people into the sessions has been hard. I think we're seeing that with a lot of different things lately, but particularly with this, we're trying to be responsive to what we're hearing and getting from parents as areas of concern or places where they want to grow. So we're trying to be responsive to it. But what we're doing is we're not getting critical mass there so that they know we're being responsive to it or that they could benefit from it. So we've had peaks and valleys over the years where we would have, some of the bullying sessions would bring in 35 to 50 people. So always looking for creative inputs on how we can make these more appealing or accessible to people. And I know you tried both online and
We did
in
hybrid.
person and hybrid.
We try to smaller groups as opposed to like a lecture format.
These were
This one
interactive.
was, yeah.
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 I think people are pressed for time. I mean, I think there's just the reality, but always looking for more.
Like a great idea to me. I signed up for all of them. Never there.
Wasn't gonna report, no. So
So it's
again,
both success and a place for growth, I would say.
and it may also be like, is that a deliverable for the next round, or do we need to pivot and think differently about how we're continuing to engage and support our families? So I think that's a piece that we need to look at some of that data. What did attendance and participation feedback look like? Well, we do have quite a few carry forwards here in the social emotional learning. A lot of them are connected to what Pam mentioned too, is making sure that this is a clearly articulated initiative that's happening in that pre-K through 12 lens across, and additionally moving towards some of those more monitoring and measurement type, how are we doing with our integration and our measurement of effectiveness within the SEL programming, including the family partnerships.
I'm just curious, in high school, because you say you want to move it into high school. One thing that I see, just because of my own kids, is a transition from high school to college. Understanding what works in high school and perhaps doesn't work for everyone in college, or doesn't work for the workforce. So I'm just curious if there's how can we prepare kids in their last year or two in high school to enter a world that may play by slightly different rules? Because I think where I've seen a good job is focusing on already in middle school, teaching kids to self-advocate, and the school's been doing a really good job with that. It's very pleased. But not everyone is going to make allowances for you. That's something that, there's what's appropriate here, but how do you prepare kids to realize
That they can't wear their pajama pants and Crocs.
No, not that, but if you're late on something,
Right.
they may not say, well, yeah, because you told me or something.
It's good feedback. I think one of the challenges we're trying, as you transition slides, what ends up, like at each level, right, the kids spread out a little bit more. So why we are invested in the middle school model is because kids will move from having one teacher with a visit to a specialist that they know over 5 or 6 years to having to manage 5 to 7 adults in a given day. But we keep the team around them so that we manage their relationships, we manage the movement. There's a lot of support in getting used to that kind of spread out model. When they launch in 9th grade, part of, I think, the challenge around SEL programming or structures at the high school is that now they really blow into a whole bunch of different directions and it's departmentalized. I think we're working on that through some of our models and some of our work to become more interdisciplinary, but there's like a department for that. So how do you get the buy-in from every teacher that they have a piece in it, but in a way that it's not repetitive or just performative, and that it's really, so I think we've made gains with mindset around teachers, but we have not made gains with structures. And I think it is a particular challenge. High school was all in on ruler from the beginning. It just wasn't fitting the way our day in our time is structured. So I think that's the challenge before us.
And I actually think it's a nice transition too, because what we've really, the more we've tapped and reflected on this piece, it's really that initiative too, with that social emotional learning, empowering both our students and our teachers to directly teach and design our structures to support it, but also within this idea of the cultural competency initiative, celebrate and nurture an inclusive and diverse school culture that recognizes the contributions and uniqueness of all individuals, is that we're really charged with making sure our students are safe, inclusive, accessible, supportive of all of our learners. And so that those two together, if we're doing this work well and in a really comprehensive manner, we've created the conditions that now let us push that practice forward to that authentic learning for our staff and for our students. So really laying that groundwork for that so that our learning environments are available and supportive of all. And under these, with our district improvement objectives, that first bullet, really with that student vocal data, in the end, like when we're talking about inclusive and diverse school culture and students being recognized, that student voice is really going to be driving that framing. Do our schools support and provide safe learning spaces for all of our students? So that piece for us is really, I would say, probably the cornerstone of some of our objectives that we were reviewing. And thinking about this idea, some of these pieces are some of these examples that we talked about. Now, this is just how we do things. It's not something we did one time. So every curriculum review cycle, there's a step in that process so that we're creating an equity lens as we're thinking about this curriculum. What does that mean in this curriculum? What does it look like? What does it sound like? How will we know? applying that materials equity assessment rubric that some of the staff had developed, that is now something that we have and we use. So it's not something that was a task complete, but really something that will let us continue to apply the shifted practice as a whole in our system with some of that work.
We kind of have to boil it down. I think the achievement is shifting from designing lessons based on our lens to being aware of your audience in a greater way and designing lessons and instruction for the breadth of that audience. That's, I mean, for us, that's what cultural competency and SEL, it just means developing an awareness for your students and what they're bringing to the table and what they may need, so we can broaden our reach. Okay, is it the dreaded?
Almost. And then this one with that, while we've done, this work has been done, it is something that we know it's never finished or completed totally. So while this is an objective that we've made great growth towards, it's something we're going to continue to do is thinking about what does that ongoing training, professional learning, and adult knowledge growth and sharing look like as a carry forward. So now you get to.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about teaching and learning. Now we need to talk about what holds it all up. And this is very quick because really this is your goal to, I mean, you have been partners in much of this work over the past few years. So our fourth strategic initiative is targeting a stable funding and a multi-year budget and capital improvement plan through collaboration with town and community partners. So we have made progress. And we put a lot of effort into it, I think. So, sorry. So these were our objectives to reach our 10-year goal, was to develop and pass a budget that maintains quality and forward progress, maintaining efficient practices, but shifting to greater advocacy for increased funding to the district. And I think we've met that objective. We may not have gotten all of the deliverables in there, but I do think we've been in an advocacy and problem-solving mode for the past few years. We have been successful in articulating large and small operational facilities capital needs. We do have a capital plan. We do update it regularly. We did do the needs assessment in that, and help pave the way for us to have a successful statement of interest and bring on, get into the MSB pipeline and be able to pursue the Essex Elementary project. This was very early in the process, but we completely reorganized central office, eliminated, redesigning some of the, I will preface this by saying we added no FTE, but reorganized existing FTE, and the money's there to create a more modern and efficient system to support both our employees and external needs. What you might see in the next iteration is some targeted goals or objectives around modernization of the tools in the office. So some of the reporting frustrations that have been brought up at school committee over the years come from not having a system that can generate that type of report. So for example, like I would foresee us having a deliverable of changing out our payroll system. I know Michelle has aspirations of bringing it in-house because we would need to bring it in-house to do that real-time reporting that people are looking for. So that would be a complete software restructure and a personnel restructure to go with it. So I think we've taken a lot of the feedback about what people would like to see, and we'll probably lay out some plans of how to get there and what the potential costs are. But I think from where we were 3 to 5 years ago to where we are now in terms of operations and division of efforts in central office, I think we met our mark. I think we have evidence that we met our mark there. And then when Heather and I were going through this, I said, this isn't a new word to us. If you've been with us or been following the budget for the past 15 years, and it was even embedded in our old set of goals, which we may want to revisit, that we pride ourselves in annually going through and finding efficiencies. I think where the point of departure is we don't always see the efficiencies as a way to lower the budget, but as a gateway to invest in our new needs or an innovative practice without having to add to the budget. So instead of asking for a new addition of $75,000 to $100,000, we're always going to try and find something that needs to be sunset or reorganized to generate resources to do it. And I think there's a lot of evidence, if you want to pour through years and years on that budget page, that we've been pretty successful. I will give the example of we were able to achieve 2 coaches by redesigning roles. So I know Michelle obviously could not be here tonight. She is recuperating. But I think she'll be a great partner in trying to crafting the next 3-year plan under this initiative. And these are just some of the evidence pieces, or where you can see where we've met the objectives. So the budget, I think, stability, we need to carry forward our advocacy. We need to continue to, again, to Heather's point, I think these things, some of them were foundational to create the capital plan. Now it's to maintain the capital plan and make it an active part of our long-term budgeting process. Review personnel efficiencies, like I just said, we do that every year. We intend to do that every year. The piece that's not on there, but it is on our big spreadsheet look at it, is we did the big accomplishment is we did get the reserves policy. So that's a nice deliverable. And I think that is going to help be a good guiding document as we pursue future budgets. Because I think if nothing else, it provides a guideline as to how we should be using them and how we should be maintaining them. So pretty excited. Believe it or not, I think after I mean, we do put so much time and effort into it. I think we have, although it may not feel like it, we have accomplished quite a bit in advancing the conversation around the budget. Can you take me back one more? Yes. And it's hard to see here. And I think budget is instruction, because without the stable budget, we cannot focus our energies on these things, and we don't have the resources to support these things. So while it may not be what we want to talk about as educators all the time, we have to provide this as a foundational piece, which is why we use the pyramid as the marker here, because without it, all we're doing is chipping away at this or redesigning this, not for growth, but for survival. Yeah. Okay. So back where we started. The next iteration of the DIP is coming your way in the fall. We are going to we have a lot of documents we need to pour through over the summer. And we have a few things that are coming up from the state that we'll have to consider. These are just some of the things that we'll be reviewing. I had dropped this in earlier, so I spoke or connected with our liaison at DESE. They're still projecting 5 months from when the review was conducted. So that was around beginning mid-February. So he's projecting maybe mid-July, we'll see something from them. So these are just some of the documents that we'll be looking at, or some of the requirements that we'll be looking at to inform our next iteration of the district improvement plan. This was a fairly rigorous, it's a cyclical analysis, a cyclical review, 6 years of all of the kind of compliance areas, but we do have some recommendations there that we're going to need to implement. We have the NEASC elementary program review. Those documents are final, so they'll be able to inform our practice, and they will come in front of you as part of the school improvement plan reports in the fall.
Additionally, so some internal information that will be informing our work and development. And some of this is data we always use. Some of this is data that we might use, but we might be looking at it in a different way. And, this piece as well is one of those that, a lot of the work that we do when we're thinking about our day-to-day is informed by these pieces, but taking that holistic view as we're thinking about these data sets, and these are not exhaustive lists. Again, like, we spent a lot of time saying, like, how many different things do we list? Do we list everything? You can't possibly. But one of the examples here, for example, is, so the question that's come up quite a few times around this idea of math and what's happening in math, in that middle school math conversation, with really valid and thoughtful questions. And so while I was thinking about it, like, if I was looking and asking a question about middle school math, I could look at that single data set, but that single data set would actually lead me to look at, what does that mean for performance and for growth? What does that look like for class enrollment? But not just now, what does that look like over time? Are we seeing the frequency? Is it a right now, right here? Have we seen these iterations before? But then you also have to go back and look at, like, how does this inform the whole system, right? So oftentimes, this is the work that we do that we don't get to showcase every day, right? Where you have data of some sort, information, report, a quantitative measure that then leads us down this path of, what does this mean for us? What are we doing right now? What do we need to do short term? What do we need to do long term? So this question about looking at this idea of math data, I mean, bring it on. That's right, exactly something that is teed up for our curriculum review process and something that will then be incorporated in a large way, but also is something that on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week, I mean, all day today, I was actually in data meetings in our elementary schools, that we also stop to look at what does it mean for our students right now in front of us? What does that mean for us in that short-term planning? But then also when we're thinking about those systems and how does something like that inform a district improvement plan, but also what are we doing right now? And so these pieces that are powerful, but certainly are not a solo, they're not certainly like a solo piece as standalone. So that's one of the ways that you're going to see components like that built in here, but it also doesn't mean we're like, okay, in 3 years, we'll see you then, that there's action steps taken on any given one of those steps on a day-to-day basis. But so these internal data sets, external data sets on top of those mandates, and that's it. Just put them together.
Thanks.
Yeah, just to be.
And I would say if you're, I've kind of suggested that if you want to understand a little bit more about how we collect, assess, and use data to inform kind of instructional decisions, that would be a good subject for a workshop over the summer where we could just, Heather can kind of take us through the process that she uses with people, how it feeds into the curriculum review cycle, so you could have a deeper understanding of where one piece that may come into the public conversation fits in the scheme of things.
Who does not want to spend their summer days looking at data with me? It's fun.
I think we have covered the strategic initiatives in Jeffrey's roadmap. So I think, remember, I guess to keep in mind, 10 years is our long-term goal, and these are 3-year roadmaps to get there. And then, as we've alluded to, this summer, we're going to go through those long lists of reports and data and kind of craft the preliminary plan. We'll share it at the 9/2 meeting. We'll open up for public comment from 9/3 to the 17th, and then we'll bring back the finalized plan by 10/21. So they just keep rolling. I think that's probably the other big picture takeaway. This is all very much a living document. It's very fluid, as you started with in the beginning, things that are going to look and make sense to us this summer. Who knows what happens in the world over the next 3 years that may throw that, didn't mean it that way, but a lot of things can happen to us, to education, to the Department of Ed's priorities that might push us in a different direction than we intended. So we have to always be prepared to kind of move and flow, while at the same time being responsive to actual inputs to our district improvement plan and not just overcorrecting for something that might pop up as an area of interest or appear as an immediate concern. I think Heather's perspective of looking at something that may rise at the moment in a longer term trend or cycle and part of a more complex network is important, so that we don't overcorrect for something that may catch our attention. There are plenty of days that I come in and I think I have found the thing we should be working on tomorrow, but when you back out and look at it in the context of things, it's really just that moment where it's heightened.
And I think it's also helpful as someone who came in mid-work of this district improvement plan, like I didn't have to try to figure out which things do I want to do? What should I do? Who should, the work of the district is the work of the district, and it's our job to continue to inform and support, but that process is just really so critical for the district as a whole.
And if you were at one of these pre-COVID, we were talking about developing systems and structures, because we did operate for a long time with Heather would come on board. So Heather brought her bag, and that's what we would be doing for the next few years. So what we've tried to move away from is individual decision-making around what sets a curriculum at a particular grade level or in a particular topic area, and coming into a very systemized approach of having a curriculum across grade levels. I mean, when we first started this endeavor, one school had report cards, one didn't. So, there were some basic functions that had to be brought together online, and that's not that long ago. So I don't want you to lose sight of where we are in our trajectory of growth from becoming a district in 2022 to where we are now. So I think it's really important that we have guiding documents. So when you do switch out principals, and when you do switch out directors of a particular function, that they have a roadmap, and the roadmap is consistent with where all of the data inputs have pointed us over the years. So we'll stop talking now, or talk in response to your questions instead. But I think we're feeling pretty good about where we are, and excited about the work ahead.
A lot of good stuff.
And, you know, a lot of, Allison's not here tonight, Michelle's not here tonight. They are huge contributors to this plan as much as the principals are. They're all named as, and key partners in this. And Heather, obviously, as director of curriculum, owns a lot of the deliverables in that curriculum bucket. So really, it's a team effort, and we're just, you know, it's like exciting to build a new team. So how can we answer your questions now that you've been taking notes for a good amount
How
of
about
time?
we go around the floor and start off with
Yeah, I don't have any specific questions. So.
Teresa?
I don't have questions, just comments, so if you want me to wait, I can take them.
No, you can go ahead.
I'll take questions and comments at this time.
Questions and comments. Is
Okay.
that cool with you guys?
Please.
Sure. So through this, starting with your report and then into and through this, what really is striking me right now is you kind of hit a little bit on it about this idea of overcorrecting for what feels like immediate concerns, right? But what I'm hearing over and over and being reminded of is these things that actually have been being worked on for a considerable length of time, and even some really obvious ones like the schedule alignment. It felt so pressing and immediate because it was the way it was going to fix one budget 1 year, you know, or maybe for multiple years, but it was so immediate and we had to do it right then. And it just wasn't going to work to force that in. But when you give it the time and space to work through the process, now we've got something that's not just potentially going to work for 1 year, but that can be built on. So between the schedule alignment, the library task force, again, taking a bigger picture, longer term, the world language, which has been how many years, and we have everyone wanting to do it because it feels immediate to us as parents and sometimes as townspeople. So I just want to say that taking a step back and looking from the higher viewpoint is really helpful. And I hope that everybody can see that we are meeting needs. And by we, I mean you guys, hopefully with our support, but meeting needs and answering to the community and for the benefit of the students, but it's not overnight. Like the stuff we do is not overnight, and it can feel so overnight or immediate for us if we've got a kid being impacted by not having XYZ. But that has set us on a path to be able to be in a position for advocacy for the budget. This is responsible stewardship. And I hope that people really, our communities dive into these documents when they're posted, because this is really good evidence of responsible stewardship over multiple years of difficulty. Not overcorrecting, but not undercorrecting. And I just really appreciate that. And the final comment that I would like to say is that moving forward, as I know we're going to be talking about budget again, you know, any minute now. One thing that I would like is probably already on your mind, but Michelle brings a really unique voice to this, given her other experience on a finance committee and with just a different mindset. And I would love to hear, now that she's had a full year with us, I would love to hear that come through for our understanding a little bit more, a little vocal presence, and also in helping our town partners and working with our town partners, because I think that she has such a unique breadth of knowledge now that she has, again, a year here, but also really understanding that municipal side so perfectly that I think she needs to be a key partner in that. So thank you. This is great.
Thank you. That was great and very, very comprehensive. And for me, I think most helpful in really highlighting is not just all of the amazing things that have happened over the last 3 years, which it did, but also sort of how important this higher level work is, and that all of these things then support all of the work on the program. And then the work on the program supports the curriculum and instruction. And then the curriculum instruction supports our teachers and our learners. And I think that you
presented it in a way that really ties all of those pieces together and makes it easy to digest. It's easy to see how some of the higher level stuff that sometimes seems very abstract and very far removed from our students' daily experiences actually ties directly into so much of what they do every day in the classroom. And I think it helps me to conceptualize why our role in all of this is to receive this information, because there are so many other layers being done in classrooms, in offices, in central office, in the individual school buildings every single day that it's impossible for us to keep up with. And so to see just the highest level and then how it all flows down was really helpful for me. And I hope that people will take the opportunity to sort of dig into it and understand that flow and why we don't hear as much about some of the more exciting pieces that we might like to hear more about.
Go ahead, I'll go.
That's favorite minute.
It's one of the very few perks. Okay, so you get to choose when you speak.
And for me, this is all very new, so I'm trying to soak it in and make sense of it. I guess the one comment maybe is, I'd love to see a little bit more clarity on how this connects to the vision of the graduate, because for me, that vision is so important, and it's only become more important given all the events that are happening in the world around us. And I think it's an incredible marketing tool is the right wording, but it's something we've continuously sell to our communities of why this school district is so important. And if we can come even halfway to achieving the vision of the graduate, I think we're doing an amazing job. And so we can keep coming back to that, because I felt like I lost a little bit of that, maybe because I'm still learning the acronyms and some of the terms.
I think that's a good
I
point.
just make that a little bit more focused.
It's a good point.
Yeah, and I think kind of echoing out that how the two interact, district improvement plan and the vision of the graduate, I think that's a great point. That's just adding up. So I didn't really have, I did have one question. The carry forward objectives will go, the ones you listed in each of the initiatives will go directly into the next year's DIP or the new iteration of the DIP, plus there'll be more added. Or they'll,
Yes and
the
no.
spirit of them
The
will
spirit
carry
of them.
forward, and then they might be tweaked and
We
added.
might be rewording or redeveloping some of the actions to get there.
Okay. And for some of them too, it's like that was step one, and now we're pushing it up a level two, so some of it might be like increasing our expectations in that part as well, so.
Got it. Okay. And then I just wanted to, and I think a couple of people have already touched on this, reiterating how, Pam, what you said about strategic initiative 4 around stable funding really makes all of the other initiatives possible, the teaching and learning and student experiences. And I wanted to thank the members of this committee who are currently here and the ones previously who did the work in the community to educate the public about what the budget is about and what is on the table. And I want a comment or is it a question? How can we as a committee, starting ASAP, and I think the meeting with Ann and Alba is a great start. I'm like so happy to hear about it. It's awesome. And how can we as a committee help that effort, not just like in budget season, but all year round, and kind of use this great work as Kate described it in this district improvement plan to explain why our district is so great, and the work that's been being done is worth funding and worthwhile.
Jake? Or do you want?
Well, it was kind of a question, but it's a open-ended question. I didn't expect really a specific answer, so I'm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to say on that, that's an ongoing challenge,
Yeah,
right? So it's a lot of information. People tend to, there's a lot of public information out there. Sometimes looking at this, if you're not familiar really about how a school district operates, challenging to digest some of this. So I think continuing to just engage when you can, right? And we do, I think we do highlight quite a bit of this. And I just think it's an ongoing challenge, right? So,
I think there are some, concrete ways that we can figure out if it's the committee or the superintendent to more consistently kind of communicate that in official channels, like totally, yes, like continue everything you just said. And I know this committee has worked so hard on that. But just thinking about, whether it's like a monthly column in the Cricket and I think this is ideas that have been discussed before, but, I think communication was key to getting and like articulation and education and breaking these things down a bit was key to getting an override passed and getting the budgets passed and will continue to be, as we move forward. So.
Jim.
So I'll echo a couple of things that have been brought up already. First of all, thank you for taking the big picture look and within your narrative, sharing examples, right? So it's not just check, we did this, check that happened, but what does it actually look like now? And I think that's a key part of telling the story. These materials by themselves can't do it because what you shared is where that came a little bit more alive. And I agree with Lindsay and everybody else who's spoken to the fact that, these are the kind of stories we want to tell. And it can't just be on you as staff, but it's got to be on us as a school committee. And I think we need to figure out how to do that. So all that to say, somehow translating what we've done here with all its educational lingo, right, into ways that parents and others who are not familiar with all this and don't live in the educational lingo world would make sense of. Because I do think it shows, to Nadia's point and to Teresa's point, it does show, Kate spoke to it, the work that has been done that ideally students are experiencing, and that, the progress we're making as a district is not just protection of what's always been there, but, actual change in student experience. So that said, a couple questions for you. First, I appreciate that you included like your reference sources. Where do we find a bunch of those? Particularly, since this first 3 years was a lot of assessment of what we are, right? You've got the different assessment reports and the Arts Council report and cultural proficiency assessment and the curriculum review findings. How do people find those?
Any of the specific references that were listed on the bottom of the slides are in the appendix. Anything that we have access to, we listed in the appendix. There are some pieces that you just listed that might not be a curriculum review result. So some of for example, there is the arts program report or the summary of findings. We know that piece is there. There's other processes that haven't necessarily, the next step hasn't yet been a published report. When that comes, that would be something that would come here as an update or a share. So anything that we had access and referenced, we tried to link here in the appendix.
Okay, it might be worth figuring out how to make those more accessible to the general public.
I think we could even, if we post the slide, I can even anything that we have, can try to link those even in those.
All the public
references.
reports end up posted on the web, and we've tried to collect most of them under a tab that's on the curriculum site that's third-party reviews and reports.
A lot of it is just duplicated, but you definitely get that.
Okay.
And we're going to, we should have thrown on. Our old website platform is being sunset, and we have to merge over to something called Final Site. So in the redesign, we can make, it's not getting, let me rephrase, it is not being redesigned, it's being moved over in its current form and structure into a new.
Migrated.
Migrate, that's the word I'm looking for. Into the new tool. So the background tools are a little bit more tedious, but everything that is there now will be there, and we're gonna kind of go through kind of a systematic cleanup over the summer and have it ready to be in good shape for the fall. I'm saying that because I think we can make it clearer there where to find some of these things.
Great.
Because they do, like, they are all out there, you just need to know where to look.
So looking ahead to the next one, I appreciate that many of the current objectives get carried forward in some form. I'm looking particularly at the authentic learning one, for 3, 4, and 5. And I appreciate that in that context, you know, that a lot of it was focused on assessment, where are we defining that kind of stuff. So really trying to figure out what that means for practice, right? I'm a little concerned about the language that's in this one, and I don't remember it, to be honest with you. But it's been there for a while. Strengthening quote unquote traditional academic program practices when we're trying to move to authentic. And maybe this is me as an educational linguist, right? I'm reading into what traditional means in that. So anyway, I just want to highlight that as potential clarification, right? But I think my bigger point here is that I think there's a lot of opportunity to build in next steps around some of the bigger picture conversations that we have been talking about as a committee for a little while, which is like, what do we consider as metrics of success for our district, right? If it's not MCAS, what is it? Particularly in the context of authentic learning and the vision of the graduate, like Nadia pointed out, right? What can we track? I don't know if that's the right word. What can we convey to the community about metrics of success that are not just real estate prices and MCAS, right? So I think there's opportunities there. There's opportunities to account for some of the community input we've gotten during the budget process, right? And as a way to kind of formalize it. Some of those are going to take a little while, right? We can't get to it in a month or two for budget purposes, right? But they're going to take some time to get to, and we can formalize that in the plan, if you will. So I hope that we can build those in. And then on your process on this slide here, it would be great if we were able to talk about the preliminary draft as a school committee, with you then having some time to do a little response to us before it goes out to public comment. Just to give yourself a little bit of time to address kind of what we as representatives share, and then put it out for public comment rather than putting out the same draft the next day. Just so that, you know, we can feel confident that community input that we've heard up to this point, or up to that point, you know, is reflected well.
Can I respond? Personally, I'd almost rather comment on it after I heard the public comment, more like a more updated public comment, specifically on the document.
I just think that we would be adding an extra round. I feel like we would then be requesting another draft when they could collect our feedback and collect the public feedback, and then
Then why bring it to us at all? And
so that we have a chance
we
at
can give
public meeting to give feedback,
to what end?
to incorporate into the final draft.
So the way I'm reading this, we receive our packet, we would then in a meeting on the 2nd, give our feedback as a school committee. Because we always get to do that, and
Why
then,
does that have to be the day before it goes out?
It doesn't, it could be in the middle of while it's already out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I don't think that they should create another draft in response to our feedback before creating a draft in response to feedback. Does that make sense?
I am, but I'm making an assumption that there's a reason for bringing it to us before it goes public.
I mean, it's
If there
public.
isn't a reason for that, then it doesn't matter when it goes out.
It's really public as soon as it lands in our inbox though, right?
but our practice has been, and the practice has been primarily that the school committee gets first eyes on things in case there are things that are grossly inconsistent with our strategic vision or other things, and that it's our responsibility to have first eyes on that before something is put out officially for public consumption, even though technically it's public. So that would be the why for me.
Yeah,
But I think that's the
that's
point
exactly the,
you're making.
that's exactly the point I'm making, yes.
So if you catch something, I think what you're saying
So what-
is, then there isn't enough time for Heather, family, whoever else to react if the intent is the next day. to
Oh,
respond.
they just wouldn't put it out.
But they also, they email it to us the week before, and we have time if there's anything glaring to email them in advance of the meeting, so that if there's like a data point that's wildly, there's like an extra zero added or something.
So we don't need to have a school committee meeting to discuss.
Well, we
our-
do.
No, we do.
But if there were something so crazy that it couldn't be changed between
No,
that
yeah.
night and the next day, they wouldn't have to send it the third.
We don't have to send it out at all. I mean, we built this in to collect feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not publicizing, you're not putting in the paper, expect the preliminary draft on the third, right? So if on the second we meet and we're like, oh, this, then you wait a few more days to get back.
I think the big piece we were thinking here is that how are we giving that space for community input? And we know that there was intentional community input built into the strategic plan. So then we were thinking, do we do a survey? But then what questions do you ask? And how do you make sure that folks are informed enough to help build? So we thought by providing something that's built upon the data that initiate the strategic plan and giving folks something to react to, it could just help us to make sure that our alignment is there rather than doing an initial community input at this stage, which could really be hard to ask for folks if you don't really understand the goal of the district improvement plan. So finding a space for the community voice was an add-in that we just thought would be important as we move forward in the next step.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of what,
This is not.
this is not something we haven't done before.
I
We don't
mean,
normally say, please
The
make
typical
public.
process is,
Right.
it's drafted based on the data, we present it, and it's approved that night, and we move forward.
Right.
So we built in a couple of extra steps based on what happened last time.
Yeah.
To take some input, but it's not, what do you want to see in the district improvement plan? It's more questions like Heather has suggested around the alignment of it, the clarity of it. Do people understand? Is it easy to, things
Yeah.
of that nature. It's not like open up the wish list of putting things on the docket.
I think it's positive that.
I appreciate building those parts in.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to point out is, there might be opportunity to tweak that or need to tweak that depending
We
on.
could move it to that,
That's right.
the Friday of that weekend or the Monday, the following
Yeah.
Monday. But this is our loose timeline. It's not to Nadia's point, not a published timeline. It's not there isn't any mark we have to make. If something happens drastically and we don't meet the first deadline, then we'll have to reassess.
Sorry, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
In whose purview at the end of the day is the DIP? Superintendent, the leadership team?
Leadership team develops. I give first approval. I bring it to this group for second.
For the writing?
School improvement plans, it's courtesy to come to school committee. Those are the ones. But we bring everything.
So the writing of it is really a leadership team. And the leadership team is principals, directors.
That's all we've got.
And if there's somebody
In the deans, with the deans or
deans, okay.
Yeah, so to close things out, I just, when I see these presentations, I just tend to think about, when I first joined the committee. And I think this just really reflects quite a bit of progress in the past 3 years. So thank you very much. Like, I remember sort of where we were in this process 4 years ago now. And really my only comment is, a big thank you. I think there is great work being done. That does not mean that, like we mentioned, that everything's either perfect today, in any way, shape or form, but I've just personally seen a lot of improvement against like the initial plan that we put in place. So I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much for all the hard work that you guys did and the rest of the leadership team.
It is a team.
So yeah, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of great, very important work. So thank you very much. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you. And look, it is 8:31.
8:31.
Good job.
And I haven't
Yeah,
even
have
left.
a couple of unscripted things.
We're going off script.
Well, it's calendar.
Adjourn at eight,
Just-
so-
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's calendar, it's June 10th or no June 10th. It's summer dates. Some of you
Oh,
have
yeah, I
filled out
didn't
my
put that.
calendar, some have not. It's a crazy time of year for everything, so and then I'm gonna need to try to find a date for a budget meeting.
And we probably should talk briefly
Hold on,
about
we still have,
Because we, okay.
yeah, we still have our like school committee planning stuff to do, right?
Yeah.
Your stuff.
Now?
Stuff, right?
Now?
Yep.
Yes.
We had 8 written on here. I'm
Hi.
half an hour past, didn't it?
I wrote 8 on there?
Yes.
You're lucky I didn't get up and leave in the middle of that presentation.
Yeah, you know,
Which is.
just, yeah, you walk up, left, right there.
Okay.
Little school.
Okay.
What was I thinking? I certainly left this morning thinking that it'll be that easily. I was probably excited, last year we did this and the auditor's report.
Yeah,
Right,
so it would seem.
yeah, just went on.
So we can kind of start with the auditor's report. I did put in a note to you that, that will now be moved to the 19th. We have an obligation to publicly report it at a meeting, but we're not under any date timeline. So with Michelle being out of commission, I just said, we'll just push this out.
You're talking August.
August 19th.
Yes,
That is the
August
next date I have on my calendar that we have all agreed to and look to have a forum for. So
We have a hold on the 10th, don't we?
we do have a hold on the 10th. So
So we're,
do we want to start there?
no, because it's not gonna be ready by then, right? Michelle's not gonna be
No,
here.
no, we're talking about just our meetings, not the other.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so no auditor for the 10th.
So what does that leave on the agenda?
Yeah, I thought that was.
I don't have any other there's nothing else other than vouchers right now, because this will be not next Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Yes.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A week from today. Okay.
And I don't know if we'll have vouchers. That quickly.
So if we don't have an
So
audit
that's,
report,
So I'm
So
gonna
we
be,
do not need that meeting.
From what I discussed with Pam, brief call last week, with, Michelle's, anyways, yes, I don't personally think there's anything pressing that we need to address, especially with the way calendars are at the end of the year. But, if there is something, go ahead.
so I'm gonna be redundant.
Yeah.
My understanding, and I'm just going on by my understanding of our superintendent situation, contract.
Don't say
Yeah, no.
situation sounds.
I don't know what to call it at this
So
point,
I can bring that up.
but let me just say, my understanding is that, the contract says we're supposed to have insight on that by the end of June for the next renewal.
So, Pam and I also discussed that, and I just informally reached out to the existing members of the committee. And so we're in a general cycle of Pam's goals and reviews. So, if you want to talk about a little bit of the timing for that, Pam, and when that'll get sent out. Because essentially, in discussing just in general, the standard process that we do every year. And the way that the budget cycle, went quite a bit over and consumed more time. We haven't had time to start on, those goals and assessments and
Pam's evaluation.
evaluation, right? So before we would be able to have a meaningful conversation around that. It's a necessary step to fill those out, so, doing that. And in terms of how the timing works. We would still have, plenty of flexibility and whatever we would need to complete that work. And I think it's something that we can, if, correct me if I'm wrong, the timing, we can push to our either summer business meeting,
I know of which,
the timing for like your goals to then
so the eval.
the eval, right?
Depending on when, I can't get it done for the end of this week.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking that.
Um, So once we set some meeting dates in the summer, then I can get, typically I try to get you something by the end of June. You work on it in July and we process it in August. It's kind of why I'm trying to get a calendar set up. So that timeline is pretty consistent. I mean, we've gone everything from halfway into the next year. We've only hit the May mark once on that. So that's the evaluation cycle. So I can get something to you by the end of the year. And we can back into a date for it, based on when you want to meet this summer. In terms of the big picture conversation, I shared with the two of you that I'm not packing my bags and running. I'm happy to stay on through 27, no later than 27. I'm bringing the Essex Elementary project,
You've shared that.
to a
publicly.
vote, and I've said that to several people. So I'm happy to say that publicly now, but it's up for the committee to have a discussion and decide whether it's in, whether our interests are aligned on that. So I will complete the evaluation. It's the 2-year cycle, so I'll send all of the documents out to you like I always will, always have, and we can process that over the summer. And, even if for some reason we decided it wasn't in our mutual interest and you wanted to start on your process in August, you could make a determination in August to bring on MASC or NESDEC or one of those groups. And if you're going out, they'll come in and they'll take it from there. And I'm fairly certain at that point you could be up and running by November. But that is something the committee has to have it, the way it's set up is you're the liaison, you and Kate are the liaison, we have a conversation, you network with the group, and you make a final determination. So I'm trying to facilitate that the best I can.
Yep.
I appreciate that. That's the first time I've heard you say it publicly, so I appreciate that. I've been operating on the assumption that we were starting the search because that was the last public statement about it. So if we have flexibility, which if we're all in agreement on that, then the summer makes sense to have that conversation. It does have to be in public though. It can't be at a workshop or a session.
Well, workshops are public.
But it's not a business meeting, right? So it does have to be at
Still
one
a
of our
posted
business.
agenda. We usually, when we do our workshop, we usually start and we have a posted agenda,
Business meeting.
a business meeting attached to it.
Okay, that's fine. As long as it's within a business meeting, that's fine.
Yeah.
So if we have that flexibility, I wanted to make sure that we, I believe the contract says June, and if we're all in agreement that we're not tied to that, then we can push that off a little bit.
The deliverable on
What else?
which party?
That's,
Now, I only have an old version of the contract. I don't know what the most recent,
that's the only,
That is,
it says, if the committee doesn't make a decision by the end of June, it automatically extends another year.
in that
Yes.
year, we're already past that.
But that's what I don't know if that carries forward in
No.
each extension or not.
It doesn't. That's why we voted to extend to 26 at the beginning of this year. So you wouldn't be caught short in that summer.
Right.
So we're making a decision now about 27,
Not right now, not right this moment.
whether to extend it. to 27.
That's
the
helpful
discussion.
though. I
Yeah.
did not,
Which is,
I didn't know where you were getting, why you were so stuck on June 30th.
I thought we all understood that, so I apologize.
so it would have been June 30th of 2024 or 2025. I can't remember now.
2023 originally to bring us through
And then we've just.
this one, and then we added the other year.
So how many extensions have we done then?
Just one.
one.
One beyond the contract extension, so we've done extended twice.
It would have been done this year.
We
You
did
didn't
20, the first one was 2019 to 2024.
Right, with no action at the end, extended to 25, no
And then,
action at the
yeah,
end, it automatically extended to 25. My interpretation is that was the end point,
Okay,
and then that's why we brought forward the 1-year extension. And in the original conversation was I wasn't interested in another 5-year contract, and I really just wanted to go year to year, and it seems to have gotten quite confusing since then.
Okay.
So
So right now, we're good through June thirtieth, 2026, and on the table is to extend through June 30th, 2027.
What will be?
What will be on the table?
Yes.
But will be in this summer.
Yes, this summer.
Or at some point, yes.
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate your flexibility.
But in the
I
meantime,
mean,
since we have an evaluation, we're on a second year of an evaluation cycle, so that will need to happen.
Yeah, and it's in everybody's best interest to just nail down time.
Yes. So is everyone clear?
Yes.
All right. What else do we have then? Did you send out dates for the
Yes,
summer?
the survey.
Well, in order of dates, June 10th, meeting or no meeting. I did send out dates for the summer. I think a few people have gotten back to me.
I just filled it in. Johnny,
Now,
right
let
here.
me, we can go live.
John's about to.
I do get a little crazy about calendaring at this time of year, only because there's so many moving targets.
Right. And then did we already discuss like the draft or just like show everyone the draft 25, 26 school committee meeting schedule?
We've seen that a couple times.
Yeah, all right, so we're good there.
So, all right, so in order of operations, I would submit that if June 10th is not, we don't have pressing items, that I would be in support of not holding a meeting. If we're planning to have that conversation in the business part of our workshop this summer, then great, unless you feel we
Which
need a meeting.
Is a great reminder that we need to fill out the availability rubric thing, the availability.
I mean, I feel like we keep saying we don't have time to explore big things and we keep doing very short meetings past month, so.
I would argue that 3 hours plus
Today-
an hour
today
and
is
15, it is not a very, like, the last one might have been short. School committee meetings do not need to be 3 hours long to be effective.
I'm not saying they do,
Well,
but I'm saying,
by saying we're
If we-
having short meetings,
all I'm saying is if we have time, can't we use it?
We don't
But you're
have-
saying you have.
you're saying you have time. I'm all for having meetings as scheduled if we have productive work to do. If we had a auditor's report, that would be different.
Yeah, only 4 members of the school committee may even be able to attend on June 10th.
It's up.
Yep.
So that's also a challenge.
So what are you looking for? Are you looking for a vote, a consensus, or do you just want some input and then
I just.
our chair and vice chair will be?
Are we having a meeting?
Yeah, I don't, I mean, and there's something, if you want to meet and there's something that you would want or expect from me, I'll be very honest to tell you if I can get it to you in 2 days. Or 3 days, because I
Right.
have been a little.
Because that needs to be by the end of this week. So they typically send out our information Thursday or Friday, just the week before, for the following Tuesday.
I don't want, is 3 hours on one day enough to discuss FY 26, the list of potential summer planning items that Pam sent out? I'm seeing an extensive list here.
We also have a meeting in August.
August
The workshop.
19th. August 19th.
No, a business meeting.
When is that?
When is our first meeting?
So I have
August
September
19th.
2nd.
August 19th is the
It's
first
like the
business
first
meeting.
business meeting? Okay.
So this would be in addition to that,
Yeah.
the meeting at that evening.
I mean, we could do, so there's June 10th, so I don't think we had a second meeting in June last year, if that helps. And it's typically to finish business. And maybe set summer dates. It can be whatever you want. I'm just telling you what we've done in the past. And then we usually build in a workshop day prior to that August meeting, or we piggyback the workshop on the August meeting, depending on the year. So I guess I'm just looking for the direction. I mean, I can do it. I can see merits in doing it a couple of different ways. Trying to put something in July, so we're at least getting together in July, might be helpful, but that's gonna be scheduled to attend it.
I would just like to submit also to keep in mind that we do have 2 school building committee meetings in July and another one coming up in June at the end of the school year. So that while it's not the full committee, it's just other things that are taking place. So it's not like nothing's happening here. So just keep that in mind.
And Nadia and I would not know our subcommittee assignments until this meeting is scheduled that we're
To the work.
till the workshop. So we wouldn't know necessarily till August. If that's the first. Just, yeah,
If that's when we're planning to discuss that.
correct.
With the possible exception that even if we don't assign somebody to a subcommittee, having a Manchester representative to the collaboration group, if we do that before the end of June, would be.
Which brings up another topic of we need to,
Yeah, I did a little, look at that. It's all populated now. I went to the Triton. We go to Triton for a lot of
Got you.
things because they've been in regional district longer than we have, and they've got quick little synopsises of each of their committees. But they also had some language about, and this is for consideration, I don't know if you're want to process on it tonight, is if they don't do, so a couple of things I took away. Number one, they have a nice little handbook, which is probably 8 pages long, and it's a little bit of a longer version of that very long email I sent you. Just kind of what they are, who they are, what the committees are. And they have some language in there that basically says if you're unable to do reorganization, that the people on just take the seats. So like if you're on for Anna and Anna was on subcommittee X, you go to subcommittee X. So that's how they do it if there isn't a decision made in the interim. So you can consider that if you wanted to as an option. You could just appoint people to go to the meeting. We could just do a small group, however you wanted to.
Which
But
are the meetings?
I can share this with you guys electronically or hard copy. It has little charges for each of the groups.
so can I ask a question? Because maybe I'm thinking of 2 different things here. Because I think part of the reason I'm in favor of discussing subcommittee assignments at the workshop is so that we can have a really good idea of what everyone's interests are and, you know, where we feel our skills are best used and really a good understanding altogether of what that is. But the meeting in June that so my understanding is you reached out to Ann and Alva. This to me reads as a chairs meeting. And so
The ask is that it's
The number crunching.
number cruncher group.
so that whole group.
Okay. Or whoever the group is going to be from the towns.
Right, given everybody's reorganization.
That did cross my mind as a bit of a challenge. I don't know if the town boards are keeping everything the same.
Right. Because, yeah, the appointed committee is supposed to be in their reorg at the end of.
And that historically for this committee, the reps that have gone have been the finance subcommittee reps.
For this past
The
year.
numbers crunching. Is this also the numbers crunching?
No, the number
Slash
crunching
collaborative?
group, the number crunching group is new this year. It essentially replaces what had been the collaboration group.
But
Okay, so then when you say,
it needs a new name
It needs a,
Because it doesn't sound like there's any numbers. to be
It's
crossed.
collaboration group in public.
public meeting,
in essence.
Yeah, I think,
In essence.
I mean, right, we're talking about fluidity. The original concept in my mind, when is a little different than where we ended up, but where we ended up serves an
Agree.
important purpose, which is fine.
So do we have an idea of what the outcome is then? Because that will make a difference in perhaps, like what is the goal to accomplish in June?
To inform our planning for next year so that we're not scrambling so late in the year.
So the towns are coming with information about their next year and that they want to give?
The 3 things I put in the email were timelines, expectations, and goals.
So with
Start-
the understanding that I like where the number, don't love the name. I love where the
Effort is
new
going.
effort is going, right? And I actually think, I think that you've done a really good job managing those meetings and trying to really keep things on track. With those specific topics, I feel like that is appropriate for our chair and vice chair to go. If you're starting with a new group and setting timelines and goals for the next year, that's what I'd really like to see. The leadership of our body taking that on. And then the finance subcommittee, once we determine who that's going to be, do the work of it and do the implementation. To me, that seems like
So-
a reasonable strategy.
I'm just reviewing the asks that were sent, and Pam, you're right, you had said timelines, expectations, and goals. But the response was that they were willing to talk about expectations and goals.
You're not time.
I just took that as, sometimes you don't respond in full.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as a purposeful exclusion.
So it's not crunching the numbers.
Right.
It's
It's a really,
trying to
yeah,
just
I
sort
would
of
say
create a,
we're certainly not, we have the model, but the model is based on very high level assumptions at this point, so I don't think we have numbers to crunch.
Right.
Ideally, we could run it a little bit like, a collaborative bargaining session where we kind of set what are our common needs, things that we can all get behind. Like, I think everybody agrees in their own way that we want a strong school system. So, I mean, you could do a little bit of that goal setting. I mean, it doesn't have to be too high level. I mean, I don't know if you want to start to dig into the assumptions based on the model that we have. I just, Michelle is not likely going to be able to participate. So, I mean, I could certainly set and manipulate the model. That's not a problem.
I think that the expectations are, but more important, sort of the ground rules for going forward. How are we going to work together?
How do we create a constructive conversation around this?
so
But I guess my only question is, does this group need to have any pre-conversation before we go into that meeting? And is that what you want to do with the 10?
So again, we're only going to have 4 members possible to even, and I'm not sure if we're going to have 4 members. I only have 3. So it does not seem beneficial to have that type of conversation. We have 3 or 4 members of the committee here,
I also feel like we've had that conversation in circles over and over again.
dozens of times.
So maybe one option, or 2 options, actually. Depending on, because maybe I'm just misunderstanding the kind of what the output is going to be here. But alternatively, if we wanted to, if Jake did want to still, for consistency, keep that spot there and represent for Essex, then I think rather than putting someone else in that seat, I think it would be more appropriate to have Chris as chairperson be the Manchester rep in that moment until we
That's fine.
do a
That's a
subcommittee reorg. It's just an idea, but I'm just trying to think of things so that every time we do something like this, we're setting a precedent for the next time we do it. And so that's what I'm trying to think through. But in the absence of being sure that we would even have a quorum on June 10th, perhaps we could, like we sometimes do, send our hopes for or expectation, that sort of thing, to you to pull together.
I can do that. I think something that would be helpful for me coming out of that session would be some expectations around information exchange. So as I was reading through Triton, they have some explicit language about how boards ask for information from each other, and it's just, it's a kind of common sense, boards through the chair to the organization. I can live with a lot of different variations on that. We can operate. I just think that might be a good clarifying point, like almost like the norms when we set out on a negotiation, like what are the rules of the road? So we don't find ourselves in the middle of trying to make financial decisions, trying to have side discussions and debates about how the process should work. That would be helpful.
So in the interest of moving this conversation forward, can we agree that Jake's already sat in on these meetings, so Jake should continue to until we have reorganized? Chris, as the chair, can go as the Manchester rep in having already participated in chairs meetings. And I trust that between the three of you, whatever expectations or
Well, this is a public
that you
meeting.
come up with
It's a public meeting.
are not going to be ones that I have some fundamental issue with. And I would like to go now.
You're making a motion, but I'm second it.
Well, no, we have another agenda item.
Okay, so did we finish on this one?
We did not.
So I think I heard no meeting on the 10th. Yes, let's go ahead and schedule a meeting for, maybe the first task of the group is to rename itself,
Yeah.
number crunching meeting.
Oh, well, now I want to go. I want to get to name it.
May I suggest you have Heather facilitate these meetings because she runs a really good meeting.
I don't know if he wants anything. All right, what else is left in the
With
agenda?
me and Chris representing.
With you and Chris.
Yes.
And so if
Okay.
somebody want to,
I'd like to make a motion that Jake and Chris represent our group at the number crunching meeting in June.
Second, do we need to vote on this?
I don't know.
Yeah,
let's just-
formalize. Good.
We don't have breakfast.
Formalized.
We have to vote, but if you'd like to.
I made a motion,
The motion,
now we have
so-
to.
So we don't have to do a roll call, because John's with us.
Any discussion? Second,
call the number.
It was seconded.
okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Great. Any school committee comment? So please.
Very brief. Yes, very brief. I know you guys know this, but the MASC training, whenever it's offered, the sooner the better for you. Sometimes it takes a long time to get to it, but it is a lot of hours of training. If you can get it all done in one day, that's great. But it is really beneficial, especially as we head into the fall, when we're voting on things like a district improvement plan. It really helps us understand our purview and what it is we're responsible for. And so what parts of that are our vote really going toward. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is, I was able to participate in the mental health first aid, training that was offered. It's been offered in a few different communities, that I think, Cammie, our athletic director, Cammie Mulliner, was part of leading, and also Jesse Palm. And it was really beneficial. So if anyone has an opportunity to do that, I would highly recommend it. And I believe they're trying to bring that toward coaches and that sort of thing too. It was great.
Yeah, Kimmy has a great, we have a couple of things that are carried forward that Kimmy is going to be bringing forward to us next year.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, it looks like someone else got it.
What did we decide about a summer workshop? Are we not deciding that this week?
No, it's, we filled out that.
Fill it out and we get, okay.
I
that's
can
fine.
give you
just
a
did-
quick
that was just-
report.
Scheduled by email.
Because I would like a little, so the only day we would have a quorum based on the dates that are out there, would be August 19th. There we go. Any suggestions of other dates and times?
Can we do this by email?
She tried.
We can fill it out.
Okay,
All right.
I will try again by email. But right now,
We
our-
can make a commitment to do better by email with this scheduling for you.
not complaining, it's
No.
a crazy time of year. I just have.
No, I mean, like more than half of us just sat here and did it tonight. We could have done better.
I would just say I have a lot of travel in June, but then July, August.
Same with me. After July 5th, I can pretty much commit to anything.
It's, nobody should worry about it, especially new members. It's like, this is just what happens because everybody's planning their summer life and trying to fit it in an open spot that they have in their calendar and just inevitably doesn't line up for us. And I'm trying to stack some things on meeting dates that already exist. So I'll go back. I think I can pull a few more dates. The week of June, July 8th, I think.
We usually do this the first week of August. Is there a reason we're staying away from it? There is.
It's my fault.
No,
That's
all
the
right.
week
There
that
just
I
is a reason.
blocked out because I did a calendar that allowed for all of the potential budget
Oh, right.
meetings and then all of the MSBA and building committee meetings.
Yeah.
So I sliced something in there.
Yep.
So I apologize for that.
Just real quick, since we're not gonna have another meeting, just congratulations to all of our graduate seniors, our rising fifth graders, our rising eighth graders. Good luck,
Our new members.
our new members. congratulations on your election. Welcome. And unless anyone else has anything? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.